Good evening and welcome to the Littleton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, August 20th, 2018. I will first read the proposed agenda for the evening. At 6:30 we have organization, Pledge of Allegiance, read mail. 6:35, requests from various departments, treasurer, the agricultural working group, one-day liquor license requests, fire, police, donations. 7 o'clock, we have a public hearing for the annual entertainment license for Il Forno. 7:10, public input, members' updates. 7:15, a joint meeting with the Finance Committee and School Committee to kick off the budget process, as well as to revisit the financial management policies, annual review process, and also review the auditor's report and get an update on our software system Munis update as well. At 8 o'clock, Town Administrator Selection Committee search process, continuation of that from our last meeting. 8:15, call a special town meeting in the fall. 8:45, Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator reports, specifically meeting schedule through December 2018. And at 8:50, an executive session to discuss value of land litigation strategy for the Cooper Farm, after which we are scheduled to adjourn. And with that, I will ask our clerk to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Keith, do you want to lead us through the mail?
Sure, just a couple of items in the mail packet this week. We just met 1 week ago. One of the items in the packet is a correspondence from the Lieutenant Governor announcing this year's round of grant opportunities through the Community Compact Cabinet Program. We have a best practices community compact, which was signed in 2015. We are eligible to sign a new one for which we could get grant funding, and so we may want to look at what best practices to pursue for that. Also, that there are competitive grant applications for information technology and for efficiency and regionalization grants. We have never received an IT grant under the program. We've applied several times. We can look to apply again. We've been the beneficiary of some regional grants that have been applied for and received over the years. One was, I think, stormwater. Another was for transportation. So we can apply again.
In our previous unsuccessful IT grant applications, did we get any feedback on why they weren't accepted, or was it just a thumbs up, thumbs down?
It was thumbs up, thumbs down initially. We applied for the full $200,000 and in the first round, because we didn't know how much the grant awards might be, and the grant awards ended up being much smaller amounts that year, maybe 40, 50. So we applied for a small amount the next year and didn't get it.
Okay.
But we can take a look at, everyone's applying for it. There are now 351 cities and towns that have community compacts, so it's sort of stiff competition. But we can look at what might be a competitive grant.
Okay.
And I think maybe the strategy of going for a community compact, just another compact, which brings grant money with it.
Are those mutually exclusive?
No.
That is, that
No,
you
no.
could do one and not the other?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we did our original community compact in 2015, we had 3 areas: transportation, public safety, and economic development, and we got little pots of money for the last 2. We got $5,000 for public safety, for economic development self-assessment. We got $10,000, $15,000 for public safety, and we got a lot of money for the transportation one, which went to support Crosstown Connect.
Okay.
So,
And, see, Paul, I've already derailed your quick meeting.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine.
I know that at least some of the grant applications, or maybe all of them, open August 15th. What I didn't see is, and perhaps I just wasn't reading, clearly enough, when they're actually due, and so when they're due and what the process will be by which we determine what grants to apply for and when we're going to make those decisions.
Well, I would say that we can schedule some meeting time, I'd say in September. We've got
Okay.
2 meetings, the 10th and the 24th, and we ought to schedule.
And those are
one of
reasonably
those
timed,
meetings.
right?
Yeah, that would do it. I would suggest the 24th, just because September 10th will be the last meeting before the town meeting warrant closes, and we'll probably want to devote most of that evening to finishing up, inserting articles, and getting questions answered
Okay.
about articles. But we could do that, happy to schedule that discussion for September 24th to talk about the community compact funding opportunities. Okay, so that's one. The other is just information that we got from the police department about a basic firearm safety course that's being offered on Tuesday, September 4th from 5 to 9 p.m.
Terrific. Okay. Bond anticipation notes, and we have the treasurer with us this evening, Steve.
Good evening. We're taking out a $400,000 borrowing for our road bonds. This is what's left of the original $2 million in authorizations that we've taken down. We've been paying it down each successive rollover that we've done. This will be the last roll of those 2 authorizations. We still have $1 million in unused authorizations. Bonnie is not quite sure whether we'll need it. Right now, we're leaning that we won't need that, which would be good news. This was sold to East Hampton Savings Bank at 2.55%. Last year, when we rolled this, it was in the neighborhood of 1.5, so interest rates have gone up in the past year. There was 3 bidders for this, so it wasn't super competitive, but East Hampton has stepped up quite a bit in the last couple of go-arounds with short-term borrowings, and they've taken out, I think they've won maybe 3 of the last 4 that we put out, so.
Getting aggressive.
They're getting aggressive, yes, which is good. We need that.
Do you read anything into the small number of bidders? I think the last bond anticipation note we looked at, it was a much larger sum, but I think you had 7, 8, 10 bidders.
That was for a bond. That was a full bond.
Oh, that was a full bond.
Yeah,
That's right. No.
These are,
Not the bank.
these bands are generally local banks, local
Okay.
savings banks that get into it. And then, unfortunately, there's less and less that are going apart.
Is, jump in.
Sure.
The difference in a point, what does it mean in real dollars to us? For $1 million,
For $400,000, 1 percentage point is what, $4,000? Something like that, $400? $400,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not much.
it's short.
All right, well, we've been circulating the notes, right?
No, I see if you got those.
Oh, you've already got them. All right, so you've got everybody's
Everybody
signatures?
signed? Yep.
Well, we want to make you an honest man, so I guess we need a vote then to,
Make us honest, we're the ones that signed it.
well, that's, make us all honest. All right,
Ready? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the sale of a $400,000 bond anticipation note of the town for roads authorized by May 5th, 2014 annual town meeting. Article 16 dated August 31st, 2018, and payable August 30th, 2019 to East Hampton Savings Bank at par and a net interest cost of 2.55%.
Second?
okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any
Just one
further-
second.
Yes, sure.
Just a point of clarification, the additional information on the model motion references the 5/4/2015 special town meeting. The motion references the May 5th, 2014 town meeting. I just want to make sure we're referencing the correct town meeting. Is that, do we know?
Oh,
if
to see
that's-
which one it is. Is the 5, where's the 5 and the 4?
The additional information.
Yeah, and the additional information in
Says
the
5/4.
model. motion?
Yeah,
Article
one
7.
says 5-4, let's check. Check.
Told you we want to make an honest man out of you.
There's no bearing on it, we need
No, but it's a good catch.
Yeah, what's it say on the bond?
Uh,
Let's go with that. Doesn't say.
Not a material difference, though, for the purposes of the vote, correct, Keith?
We'll have the vote reflect whichever town
There you
meeting it
go.
was.
Very good.
Good work.
That's
Nice catch.
All right.
Okay.
Then the motion's been made and seconded, whatever the heck it was, and without any further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Whatever the heck it was. Agricultural Working Group. I told you it's gonna be storyland, well, we got an interesting story. As Chase and I have been part of the Agricultural Working Group, along with, Anthony has been involved in doing most of the drudgery work, and a number of the farmers have participated as well, and we've been drafting an updated, forward-looking RFP with a lot of thought and input, anticipating the next life of Nagog Hill Orchard, thinking that our current lessee, Charles Hogger was going to retire, and we need to come up with a different, or different people up there. This morning, after many attempts to try to make it happen, Anthony and I and Chris Stoddard were able to get up there and take a tour of the orchards and buildings from Charles, and there's an entirely different story. I'll let Anthony tell the rest of the story.
Yeah, we were pleasantly surprised. The orchard actually looks really, really good. He's doing all his necessary sprays and pesticides and fertilization. The buildings are in great shape, including the house that we walked through. It was great getting to drive around the orchard in his old
Mercedes.
It's like
Even
his golf cart.
his beat-up station wagon's a Mercedes. You know?
Yeah, there was apples on the back seat, I don't really got to see those,
Yeah.
but, no, it's well cared for, so, at this point.
And he's interested.
And he's very interested in staying along, so I would think that maybe it's the best that we look at maybe continuing on with the RFP and looking for it as a succession plan, but in the meantime, if we were to renew him, and I think it'd probably be a great idea to do that, is renew him for another year and maybe put some new language into the contract with periodic updates to us, a little bit more of sharing the information for when that time comes, that we do have to submit the RFP. Now we're armed with a lot more information than we currently had. So,
Contingency plans as well. in case
contingency
something happens
plans,
to Charles.
right. So this is all stuff that we would work with town council and write into the next contract, and then meet periodically with them to just, a little bit more a lot more frequently than what's been happening in the past. So, I think that might be the best plan
Yeah.
going forward.
And keep that RFP process and document very much alive.
Very much alive. We're gonna make the edits that based on what we have, and then, it's a matter of pushing the button really and getting that thing out there, so, it was a nice surprise that we found out there.
And
No kid.
I think it's fair to say, Chris, who was with us,
Yeah.
had a better eye for, I don't know what his background is on orchards, he seemed to know a little bit about it, but he was very impressed as well.
First maintenance and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's-
even things like, he mows in between the rows of the trees, like we mow our lawns, or like
Right.
people other than me don't mow. I hired a kid, but.
He went away with that on your.
Yeah, it's great. He doesn't, there's not high grass in between, where if you go to some apple picking orchards, you just see that. So it was well cared for.
Yeah, and he's systematically getting away from the older, taller trees and replacing them with these shorter ones which don't involve ladders. They
Exactly.
produce less, but you can get more per acre and more productivity out of the workers who don't have to climb up and down ladders.
Right.
There's a lot of current thinking and changes going on. He's not like he's not asleep at the switch by any means.
No,
Yeah.
and he is planting new trees, to
Oh,
Bill's
yeah.
point, that when these older trees die off, he's planting new trees, which is great. So we want that orchard to continue to flourish. So it was pretty, and he's replacing it with a higher caliber apple.
Right.
Which is the Honey
Oh,
Crisp.
Honeycrisp, that's
Honey
that's-
Crisp apples,
Yeah.
which, obviously yield more money per bushel, but that's the apple that's in demand. So he's you know, he's keeping up with,
This has got 7,000 trees up there?
7,000 trees, yeah, mostly apple, obviously, but.
Yeah, McCowan's and McIntosh.
Peach,
Macintosh.
plum.
Yep, he gets, what, about 1,300 stone fruits as he can.
Yes, peach
I know
plums,
the plums at
cherries.
Springdale come from his orchard.
Yeah. So we bought a box, the chairman and I, and made our contribution, they were very good.
Where are they?
Yeah. I went
Make
in my
your
fridge,
way
sorry. So I don't know if there's any action item here now, other than just,
One thing that I think we might, I don't think it requires a vote, but run by the Board of Selectmen and make sure everyone's comfortable with, is that part of what we, as an agricultural working group, should probably think about now is how do we put in place not just a one-year contract with the current lessee, but also a succession plan of some sort? You know, our mandate so far has really been, you know, individual leases. This sort of may go outside of those
Yeah.
bounds. And if we, as an agricultural working group, are able to put together a plan and bring it back to the Board of Selectmen, here's where, you know, here's the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan for the orchard that includes a transition.
That's
I
definitely,
think
the other thing we haven't done is obviously the other farmers who, or the other members of the working, including yourself, weren't there today, so
Right.
we gotta update the working group, and I'm not sure what the reaction of those folks might be, we'll see. But I guess we probably need to revisit it with the working group and bring back, as you say,
Kick it back.
a plan.
Is there any objection to us starting to flesh out what a succession plan might look like in transition? Maybe we don't need succession, is it a transition plan for the next leasee?
Do you want to be looking at preparing like another one-year extension of the existing lease? Is that the idea? If you're not going to put it out to bid, would you want?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the key,
And-
key decision right now is, I think our leanings after this morning is not to go up to bid and to pursue another one-year lease while putting some meat on the bones of what the next, RFP process is gonna look like. And also, as Anthony indicated earlier, some more terms in the contract, which also has a lot more oversight and reporting and that sort of thing in the short term.
The original lease did have some of that language in there, as far as, you
Yeah.
know, if you go, if some trees die off and you replace, you know, you need to replace them and just report back to us how many trees have died, where you're replacing them.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to know which row and course they're in,
Right.
but just let us know that, you know, 12 trees died in that storm that we had, and we
Yeah.
replaced them with honeycrisps, or, you know, something to that effect. There's gotta be more reporting, I think that.
I was
for
just
sure.
gonna
But it's
ask
already
that,
in the
yeah.
lease, we just need to.
Yeah, I
we need
think we just, after many years of just the thing running so smoothly, I think people just didn't bother to, either do it on his end or ask for it on our end.
So the next step then would be to, with the assistance of town council, draft a new one-year lease that's got a little more, someone said, a little more
Oversight.
meat to it.
Mm.
To get us, the town, the owner, the information we need to build that succession plan.
Yeah.
And build the RFP, as well as to make sure that it's continuing to support the economic viability of the orchard.
And I think his internal contingency becomes increasingly, important just with time and age. And he understands that, I think. I guess we probably ought to get back together with the working group.
Yeah, we do have time now,
Yeah.
but we don't want to push it too far out, but we
Yeah.
have some time if that's going to be the intention.
So it sounds like we're in consensus that we move forward with Charles as the lessee.
That's our, off the hoof recommendation, so we're looking for your feedback.
I'm comfortable with that, I mean, that's.
So am I. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The job he's done all these years, he still wants to keep it up in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very delicate, entity, so imposing a change where one isn't called for might be just asking for trouble too. Okay, then I guess we'll just have to get back to you with the next steps in writing. as
We'll
far
meet
as
with the ag group, we'll put together a contract, which will then come before the board in
Yeah, because his contract is up or the current contract's up January.
January, yeah.
All right, everyone okay with that?
Yeah, thanks
Sure.
for going out there.
Fine, you gotta do it yourself.
I'll have time.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It's fine.
All right. Keith, one-day liquor license, Melt RX Fit.
Yes, we have application for one-day liquor license is, the applicant is here.
Should have guessed that.
The one yawning that's been.
No, the one-
Since 4:30 in the morning.
At least we put you on at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, thank
This
you, I appreciate it.
thing at the end of our meeting is really sort of.
3 o'clock in the morning comes very quick.
So this event will be for Friday, September 14th, from 5 to 8 p.m., and you're engaging the services of an entity that's licensed for
Correct.
serving alcohol
Yeah.
to provide it. So, and our office has the tips training on file for those individuals.
Yeah. Well, we've all received our invitation, so this shouldn't be a tough sell.
I already got some RSVPs, yes, so
Okay,
they're
all right.
ready for a glass of wine.
Do you want to take this opportunity while you're on camera to just, tell us a little bit about who Melt RX is and why you're having the
The event?
event?
Yeah, so we opened February 19th. So August 19th was our 6-month anniversary, but of course it's the worst month to get anybody to come to a party, so we're doing it a month in advance.
You're at the point and just adding it.
Yes, yep. So it's an open house, just as a thank you for the members we already have, and then for people to understand where we are and to get them to come in and check out the studio for the group fitness center, so. And just make it a fun evening. We're gonna have different sort of vendors there giving samples. Fitvine will be there doing samples of wine. We'll have the guy serving full glasses of wine and then a little snacks to try. And Net Trim will be there from Inacton, so it'll be a fun event. Get everybody out of the house once their kids are back to school and driving them crazy again.
I see
They don't have to go back to school to do that.
Chief Bernard has already reviewed this and given his endorsement here, correct, Keith? And we've got a room capacity note on here per Matt Bernard.
Right.
Yes, I grabbed him one day. He was walking by to go up to O'Neill Cinemas, and I said, "Can you come in and check this out for me?"
Okay, good. All right, members, any questions or comments? Okay. I think everything's in order here. I guess all we really need at this point is a vote to send you on your way so you can get a little sleep.
Perfect.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special one-day liquor license to Melt RX Fit Littleton, 702 Constitution Avenue, The Point, Littleton, Mass., for an event to be held on Friday, September 14th, 2018, from 5 to 8 p.m.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, the ayes have it. Good luck. Maybe we'll see you again that day.
Hopefully see you there September 14th. Okay.
Okay, we also, Keith, have to accept donations from Digital Credit Union to both our fire and police departments, is that correct?
That's correct. Under the board's policy, we vote to accept. Actually, this is a happy ritual that we go through at least once a year. We love getting a donation like this from ECU.
Yeah, and it should be noted that it was $3,500 last year, and it's $5,000 this year, so they.
It's gone up every year.
Every year, so yeah, kudos
Because
to
the interest
DCU.
rates are going up.
Well, that's it, yeah.
I'm wondering, the banks.
It's all, yeah, it's all relevant.
Was there anything you want to add, Chief Wazinski, to this?
No,
What are you gonna spend the money on?
This is a great thing. It helps to support the SAFE and the Senior SAFE programs. One of the things we're looking to purchase with some of these funds are the little small lock boxes for some of the seniors so that we can actually gain access to their homes without, forcing entry, stuff like that. A lot of the seniors are really looking for that.
And the Chief Wazinski bobblehead dolls?
Yeah, not so much. But it's great support for the SAFE program, in addition to what we get from the state.
Any comments, questions? Motion?
I think it's wonderful. Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to receive an unsolicited gift from the Digital Federal Credit Union, DCU, of $5,000 to be deposited into a special gift fund account to be used without further appropriation by the fire chief towards costs associated with student awareness of fire education, SAFE, and Senior Safe Fire Senior Safe Fire Safety Education Programs of the Fire Department, And two, $5,000 to be deposited into a special gift to be used without further appropriation by the police chief towards costs associated with senior citizen dinners, veterans breakfasts, anti-scam community training, departmental training for patrol and communications, and full departmental meetings for awards and meals.
Second?
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? You guys have it. Great. We got 5 minutes anyways. Keith, is there something you think we might be able to do, like the, oh, I don't know, the meeting schedule or something?
Sure, meeting schedule.
We should do this update pretty quick.
Well, it will be without Bonnie here, yeah.
She's not gonna be here tonight?
No, I mean, she's not here now.
Oh, all right. What number is that
That's
meeting?
number 8.
Number 8, okay.
Big board here.
Anyone have any problem or question with it? It's basically the standard two.
We've got meetings scheduled already for September 10th and 24th. This would propose meetings in October, either side of the Columbus Day Monday holiday, so the Monday before and the Monday after, 1st and 15th. Town meeting is on the 29th. We'll be getting all of the information to the printers very early October for the town meeting report. So October 1st would be a good date to finish up recommendations. Then in November, the 5th and the 19th, that's also on either side of the Veterans Day, Monday holiday observance, which is on the 12th. The holiday itself is on Sunday the 11th. The 19th of November is the target date for the tax rate classification hearing. And you would do a prep session on November 5th, where the assessors bring you, information about what the options are.
Definitely circle that on the calendar.
And then the December 3rd and 17th would be when you'd be doing licensing, annual licensing updates. And once we hear from the school committee, from the finance committee, on what their recommended date is for the joint, for the day-long budget hearing, that hasn't been set yet. We're looking at either a date in mid-December or in early mid-January. And I think they're recommending that it be one of the January dates, but we haven't set it yet.
All right. Board members have any problems with this? Of course, we always have the ability to either add or change one of these along the way.
The only input I want to offer is that I think that the sooner we can have the summit, the better.
Right.
To kick it out.
You mean
into
retreat or
January.
all the summits?
Yeah, the budget
The
summit.
budget summit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
not that
agree with you.
anybody wants to spend a Saturday, December 16th, whatever, but otherwise it's going to be 3 weeks later than that, so we're 3 weeks further behind on the budget.
Yeah.
And I think with that summit, I think we need to put a little more teeth other than, I think there needs to be a little more objective
Yeah.
going into that and coming out of that.
Well, that's-
Other than just showing up, here's your book, and
Right.
this is
You
our
know,
wish list.
we've got the joint meeting coming up, and the budget process is very much a part of that, and I think I agree with you, and those are good points. I think there's value in setting some markers earlier on in the
I think
process.
so, yeah.
And, 90% of what people want is already decided at that point anyway. But we can discuss that with FinCom and School Committee when they're in here.
Is there any sense that the 17th could be poorly attended? Would it, I'm sorry, December 17th? Would it make more sense to call it December 10th? Do back-to-back meetings earlier in the month? I'm fine,
Yeah, I think
the
the
problem
only
is.
problem is you're gonna have a big gap in between the 10th and
Right.
January.
Yeah,
And when you come
January
back.
meeting. Yeah, that's, and it's still a week before Christmas, so it should do. And the other thing that happens a lot, and this week is an excellent example, when we do have back-to-back meetings, it really is tough on the staff,
Sure.
so.
Yeah.
That's why we don't, just on the smallest matter, we don't have minutes tonight because there are only 2 business days
Right.
to get your packet out
Yep.
from the last meeting, so.
Well, we do sort of have minutes tonight, from the 23rd, but
Right.
if folks haven't had a chance to review them, those are the executive session ones. Do we,
You have to go into executive session.
okay, even though it's not listed as one of the reasons for it, is that appropriate to address the minutes?
Yeah, you have to do it, you have to I'd have to, you ought to be advised by town council.
Okay, then why don't we just make a point to try to.
Yeah, you can do it at the next meeting.
Next meeting,
Okay.
and Cindy has circulated
Yeah.
them. so-
Okay.
Okay.
All right, but how about this schedule?
Yeah, 'cause we don't even have minutes on tonight's agenda.
Right, right, so either way, it hasn't been accounted for.
All right, so we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yeah. How about this schedule? Anyone prepared to make a motion?
Yeah, Sure, certainly. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's meetings for the dates indicated at 6:30 PM in room 103 Shattuck Street Building, unless otherwise noted. Mondays, October 1st and October 15th, 2018, regular meetings. Mondays, November 5th and 19th, 2018, regular meeting. Mondays, December 3rd and 17th, 2018, regular meetings.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Perfect. All right, we have a public hearing, so I'm gonna.
And just for the record, that both of those town meeting dates were accurate in the bond one, because they referred to two separate $1 million twice.
Oh,
And we're borrowing on one, and we have another in reserve, so.
good.
Also, the other one's one that we're not sure if we're gonna have to execute.
Right.
I guess I have to read the legal notice. Is that correct, Keith? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll read it. Put it right here. Board of Selectmen, legal notice, Board of Selectmen, public hearing, entertainment license application, Il Forno Bar, Inc., 529 King Street, Littleton, Mass. Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, August 20th, 2018, at 7 PM in room 103 in the town offices located at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. To act on the application of RSS Il Forno Bar, Inc., Mike Muhammad, manager, doing business as Il Forno at 529 King Street, Littleton, Mass. for an entertainment license pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181, to allow live and recorded music performances, dinner music, as follows. Live or recorded music seasonally on the outside patio, 29 seats, and inside 70 seats, especially during brunch or dinner hours, and for private functions within the operating hours of Sunday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Selectman Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass, by noon on Wednesday, August 15, 2018, or in person at the hearing. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Paul Glavy, Chairman. The hearing is open. Keith, did we get any comments in writing?
We had staff comments only that are in the
Okay.
packet, and they were all favorable.
Okay. Mike, I see you here, if you want to come forward.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
All right. And this is just a renewal of current operations?
This is the first time that he's had
Oh.
an entertainment license.
Well, I thought I read it as a renewal. Okay. Never mind, on that point. So what do you anticipate specifically doing?
Basically, it's a very simple thing, just soft music, not on a regular basis, every once in a while. Not something too loud, too extreme. Just maybe a guitar player, for 2 hours or so, Thursday or Friday. That's what we're planning on. Other than that, there's nothing else. We're not planning on partying or doing any of that stuff. That's not my style. That's not what I anticipate to be doing for business. And I know the prior owner of the restaurant, they tried to do such a thing like that, but their objective was very different than mine.
Open mic.
Yeah.
Open microphone, not open mic.
Yeah.
All right, as Keith pointed out, we do have replies here from Planning Board, Building Commissioner, Fire Department, Police Department, and did I miss anybody? I guess that's everybody. Okay, and board members, any questions, comments?
And just to
Yeah.
reiterate what the fire chief said, just no amplification, just
Absolutely not.
acoustic, yeah.
Yes. It's a very simple thing, and
Is that code fires? It was part of the code and part of the BBRS finding when it went to that commission. As long as the number of occupants stays under 100, and for the atmosphere in that building, that was part of the agreement that came from the state. Yeah.
Just saying, keep it at that. Everything looks good.
absolutely.
And no dancing.
And no nudity.
Only in a
Which
picture.
means obviously no nude dancing. Okay, I think we all wish you well and appreciate what you've contributed to the community there. I certainly do, and if this can help your operation get even better, terrific.
I will try to just bring it to different mood, people to look at Orfono as a place to go, to have little fun beside dinner as well. So it's not like nothing too extreme, nothing too big. Entertainment means a lot, but I'm looking at very, very low-key entertainment.
Okay, board members, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll ask the public, and then if there's nothing there, we'll close the hearing. Public, any comments on this application? Roger?
Yeah, Roger Canard, Hartwell Ave. I own the building right next door to Mike there, and
Finally, I'm gonna meet you.
I just want to wish Mike continued support there. He's doing a great job next door. I think his business is going to be real successful there, and it's a mom and pop place, which we don't have in town. Competition up at the point. I think he's on the right track for this entertainment, and I wish him luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good. All right. If anyone else doesn't have any, if there's no other input, then I'd ask for a motion to close the hearing. Motion's been made and seconded to close the hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now we can take a vote on the, or discussion on the license request. Otherwise, we can proceed to a vote if you're ready to make a motion. Anyone? Or Madam Clerk?
Certainly. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 181, to approve the application of RSS El Forno Bar, Inc., Mike Mohammed, manager, DBA El Forno, at 529 King Street, Littleton, Mass., for an annual entertainment license to allow live and recorded music performances for dinner music as follows. Live and recorded music seasonally on the outside patio, 29 seats, and inside 70 seats, especially during brunch or dinner hours, and for private functions within the operating hours of Sunday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
see you at lunch tomorrow.
You got it.
I have a meeting there tomorrow.
You have tryouts, Mike?
Thank you, sir.
You have tryouts?
Huh?
Like El Forno Island or something?
You're in the biz, Chuck, they call it
It's not sports.
Thank you.
I'm looking down.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mike.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Good night.
All right. Public input and members updates.
Thank you very much.
First, for the public, if it's not, if it's pertaining to a agenda item, then we'll take it at that time. But if you have any other comments on topics that are not agended, here's your chance. Nope. Okay, members updates. I'll start with Cindy, how about you?
Yeah, want to start down?
Oh,
I lost my notes, hold
wow.
on. Thanks.
Mr. Knox. Pass. Mr. Coe.
I mentioned it last time that the kids are getting ready to go back to school, and a lot of the kids that have started their sports have started to do some fundraising. So they're walking around the neighborhoods and standing out in front of the grocery stores and stuff, trying to do fundraising, selling Tiger cards and whatnot. So just be aware that there's a lot more feet in the street, so just ask folks to be careful.
Good point. All right. Mr. Gerby.
Two items. One, make sure everybody knows that Park and Rec's fall and winter brochure, I think, went live today. Did it go out today to?
They've got an electronic version, I don't know if it's live yet, but it should be within the next couple of days.
But yeah, it's going out in the next
Yeah.
day or two, and it'll be in homes next week, so look for that. And then the other thing to update the board on is that Joe and I met with Chief King to do his, what do they call it?
Exit interview.
Yeah, exit interview. And we only met with him a couple hours ago, so we're each gonna write up our notes, and then compile those and distribute them to the board.
Okay, that's a good reminder that all of us, myself included, who haven't yet done, Joe, you and I have to get together with Keith too, right?
Is that right?
Isn't it? think that's how it was.
You were the two.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So we need to get back together with Keith, and I don't know.
So Cindy and I did meet with the fire chief.
Yep.
No, you're not.
But we probably ought to schedule time when all of us have finished it, so that we can do little updates and whatever.
We'll get our updates out there as well. That's on me.
Oh.
Cindy's shaking
Yes,
it
it
so
is.
vigorously.
All right.
Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that.
We all firmly believe that you're the one holding the motion. Really.
Okay, thank you. Then now you've had enough
I'm
time
ready
to
now.
gather your notes?
I
All right.
am. So I just want to remind everyone that the SANS Walk, the annual suicide prevention walk that Barbara Wickham puts together is September 8th. And if you would like to participate, you can register at sans.org. Regarding the opioid crisis and the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction, I wanted to congratulate Alexa Paravalotis. She completed a full training course on a program called Project Alert. It's a project that Anthony and I learned about when we went to the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting in the spring. We learned that some other communities were utilizing that program to help teach drug awareness to teenagers before they enter high school. So it's a really interesting program, and she took it upon herself to complete that course and training to become an instructor all on her own. So our next step is to work with Meredith Perry, the Wellness Curriculum Coordinator, and Superintendent Clinchy to speak with them about that program and how we might be able to utilize it and raise some awareness with the teenagers before they reach high school, that really vulnerable middle school age group. So looking forward to seeing if we can bring that to fruition, but I just wanted to commend Alexa for completing that program.
Absolutely. Terrific.
Anything else?
No?
Terrific.
Okay.
Cindy, the walk is 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. on the 8th?
What?
What time is the walk on the 8th? Is it 9 a.m. or 10 a.m.?
I'm not quite sure specifically the time.
I think it's 9 a.m. at Fay Park.
Okay, yes, at Fay Park, yep. So if you go to www.sans.org, the information will be on there. Yep.
Okay. We've got a couple of minutes, and we don't have all our participants yet here for the joint meeting topics. I'm wondering, Keith, what's your call as to whether or not we could get through anything relative to the town meeting?
Yeah, you could vote to open the warrant.
Yeah,
You could take
okay.
that motion, and then we can come back and talk about inserting the articles.
Or at least maybe we can go down that road if this
Yeah, we could
started.
quickly run through. There's two things you want to do. One is to vote to call a town meeting and set
Right.
the date for closing procedurally. And the second thing you want to do, I would think, is just take a look at the list. You don't really need to vote to insert any tonight. You
Right.
need to be prepared to spend time doing that at our next meeting.
Okay.
And so if I could just show you the list on.
Is everyone okay with that? We're talking about item 7 here, just taking it out of order to accommodate, or try to make the best use of our time.
Yeah, you don't need to vote to insert these articles tonight, but I think it would be helpful to just look at the
Know
list.
what's coming down the pipe.
Know what's coming, that bills of prior years as usual, that we have an article for budget amendments that Bonnie will be bringing forward to transfer money from one budget to another. We hope to reach an agreement with the fire union, so we'd like to fund the collective bargaining agreement that we have reached. We're looking at the 3% sales tax on marijuana sales. We'd like to bring that for adoption. Another is road acceptance of Foster Street, and this is arises because we're going to be using significant state funding for Foster Street improvements. And the last time we had significant state funding, it was for New Estate Road and Nagog Hill Road, which it turned out neither one had ever been accepted by town meeting. Same thing for Foster Street. Same thing with a lot of streets. But on this one, we need to do the same step of having an engineered plan prepared, doing a layout of the road, and then we can spend $3.6 million of state fund on that road. So,
Jump in here.
Yep.
Since there's a number of roads that could potentially have this
Yeah.
down the road,
yeah,
are we better off doing kind of a fuller swipe? And if we have some other projects that would potentially be, we want to have shovel-ready, can we lump them into this article? Or at least,
don't know.
at least have them in this town,
It's an interesting
this
question.
warrant, so
Yeah.
that we are in queue, because, I mean,
The difficulty might be to actually have the engineered plan prepared in time for road layout hearing in September.
Are you just talking about the town acceptance
correct,
component of it?
yeah, that's all I'm talking about, the
Well,
town. So,
But that's
we need
work
to
Yeah,
have,
but
we
you
need
need,
to have,
you
we
need
need
an
to have all
engineered
the.
plan.
Okay.
We're in the
right,
process
right,
of putting together an engineered
All right,
plan.
so I think we need to have the engineering plan for the state side of stuff.
No, we need to do that
Okay.
for the tent, for the layout.
Acceptance as well.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
disregard.
we could identify a list of roads that we might need to do, but then it's gonna be,
Still working on it.
whatever, you know, I don't know, 10, 15.
Probably a good effort.
That actually is one of the goals that I had put forward for the year was looking out 5 or 10 years, and let's try and get ourselves on a track right now.
Maybe that
To-
could be
to
a
get
recommendation
things
from the
started.
transportation committee to, do some of this over between now and the annual town meeting, do a bunch of them by then or
Yeah, to
something.
be able to be shovel-ready, so
Right.
we have our ducks in a row, so that if something comes up, we can.
And maybe just a quick sweep for the rest. We
Yeah,
have
sorry.
the water department, I'm sorry, we're on number 6. The planning board has Turkey Pond parcels, which could be, which would require town meeting vote to accept them, and that deed will be ready in time for town meeting. Areas A and B on this map. The water department would like to, has requested, and they need to come and talk to you about it, they'd like to have something what we can have transferred from the highway department. That's this, in the center of the image on here, and it's surrounded by water department land, and they'll come in and explain what they're doing, but it's a placeholder to look at for now. Supplemental capital projects, one of them we talked about last week, which is $200,000 for the Littleton High School King Street intersection. We don't have all the requests in yet from departments, I'm sure. Master Plan Implementation Committee would like $25,000 for form-based zoning. They'd like to come and talk to you about that.
I think they're gonna be
And so
talking
we
to the
could,
planning board this Thursday
yeah,
first.
and so I'm thinking of, for a lot of these that are requesting it, we can put them on for the September 10th meeting
Right.
and have them come in. Littleton Commons Smart Sewer, same thing, I think the sewer team ought to come and brief us on that. Planning board is working on at least 2 zoning amendments, which they are going to be discussing at their meeting on Thursday night, and we can have them come in on September 10th and talk to us about them. And lastly, town council has prepared a draft a bylaw amendment to address the alcohol on town property. So you can vote at your next meeting to insert those articles, or have, we'll have enough time to discuss them each. So the procedural motion we need tonight is to actually call the town meeting and open warrants.
Which is number one of the
Number
two
one.
proposed motions. Okay. Is everyone okay with that? And we're gonna go through this in more detail, obviously, the 10th of September, but any of those issues you want to address right now, or anything missing there that you think we might have overlooked?
Nothing that needs to be discussed right now.
Okay.
I do have some comments.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Oh,
nuance.
yeah, sure. That's not intended to be the final word on any of those subjects, but more the first. So then, motion?
Okay, certainly. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 10, to call a special town meeting on Monday, October 29, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Charles Ford's K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, with a warrant therefore to open forthwith and close on Wednesday, September 19, 2018, at noon.
Second?
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Great.
And just so you know, we're closing the warrant on Wednesdays because your agenda packet goes out on Thursdays.
That's
If we
why-
close them on Fridays, you don't get to see the warrant.
Good.
So we figured that out this year, when the warrant closed after you already had your packet, so. Okay.
All right, well, we have our friends are here to join us for our periodic joint meetings with the Finance Committee and School Committee on a number of topics. Budget guidelines process, priorities, schedule, the financial management policies, which we're kind of overdue in addressing, so we gotta get into that, back to the annual review obligation we have there, as well as we have agenda time to discuss the audit report. And I guess the Finance Committee, you guys did meet with the auditors back in June or so, whatever it was. And a Munis update, I'm sure Bonnie is looking forward to the point when she can talk about that in past tense rather than ongoing. Keith, how would you like to start it? You were opening things up here? Or?
Well, I think we could have the Finance Committee or Bonnie go through it. I just wanted to flag one of the issues that we'll need to decide before we get out of the room is what the date will be for the joint day-long budget hearing.
And we looked at it, and we voted or prefer the January 5th date. I don't know whether it works for the other two boards, but that's the one that we sort of settled on as a preference. But if there's a big problem with your board or the school committee, then
I know there was some, we had some discussion earlier that was centered on that topic, so I don't know, Chuck, you wanted to?
But my only concern is that if we wait until January to have that meeting, or 2 or 3 weeks hence, and versus like last year we did on the 16th of December, we're that much further behind. I just think that the sooner we can.
well, the difference between the 15th of December and the 5th of January is basically the holiday season. And nothing happens the last week of the year, so we just figured just get it out of the holiday season. You're not gonna be that, you guys will be reviewing your departments. I mean, the gorilla in the room is the schools, and that gives them another couple of weeks to.
I mean, we can accommodate the 15th without any problem, although I see your point, Fred, that nothing's gonna happen between the 15th and the 5th. I will say that the comment you made, Chuck, you guys weren't in the room, but the idea that if one of the things we might want to think about, if we are going to go into January, that the discussion at the budget summit be a little more substantive about likelihoods, priorities, instead of sort of it's all on the table, we all leave the room to kind of mull it over in our own heads, and then we come back to start, really hacking out what we think we can all do, what we can't do, and what falls in the middle and all that kind of stuff. So if we wanted to think about, okay, January 5th is the date, but be ready to be a little bit more substantive with it. I mean, I know it's a long day for you guys. I'm only in there for the school committee aspect of it, so I don't know exactly how that would change the way you guys look at it. It's a much longer day for you all than it is for us.
I'm just wondering why we're even, I know we were in December last year, but are there structural reasons why we can't be doing this again back in November? Or, I mean, just to get if there are issues, get them on the table?
Yeah, because we wanted to close the books on the old fiscal year and set the tax rate, in this case for fiscal 19, which occupies the finance department completely until, and then as soon as that's done, then we're all set to do the
So it
budget.
is primarily an issue with time in the finance offices. It's not the departments have all their requests essentially in at that point.
The
or-
department requests come in the end of October.
Right.
In November, I need to start putting the requests together and going through them. I have to set the tax rate. I have to do all my year-end reporting for the Department of Revenue. It's a busy.
We I don't have your budget calendar in front of us, but even if we aren't having the full day budget session of the summit until, say, January 5th, we've got a joint meeting, I'm guessing, somewhere earlier than that, so if issues are evident prior to having the summit, when are we?
Yeah, we're actually going to have a meeting on October 23rd that's going to go through like the 5-year revenue projections
Okay.
and our forecasting.
Anything else between there and the 5th of January?
I don't have a joint meeting here, no.
Yeah, it looks like the next joint meeting is the 21st of January.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the November, December meeting could be joint if we wanted to talk more about that January 5th.
I'm just trying to, make some use of those months without burdening the finance office. I mean, the boards, the office, the employees might be busy, but, our boards are, sitting around, it's like, we should be doing something productive during that time period. That's all I'm trying to suggest.
Well, you could be meeting with your department.
Yeah, well,
I
that's,
mean,
that's,
you know,
that's
I
true
mean,
internally, I'm talking about the joint dialogue, yeah. All right, well, just food for thought. I don't really have a problem with the 5th, I guess. Although if there are known issues, we really ought to be hearing about them earlier and starting to think about them earlier.
But what you may just want to schedule though for your meeting, one or both of your meetings in December to have your, police, fire,
Yeah.
highway come in and brief, those are the big ones.
Or even November, if they get their budgets in by the end of October, they're theoretically,
Good, we just won't ask finance to come in.
well, yeah, either way, they're not gonna be in a position to do much anyway. It's more.
You could certainly be reviewing the department's own
Requests.
budget requests
Right.
as soon as they make them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You won't have the context of what's the total. what it's
Right,
all
well,
about.
that's understood,
You don't have
that's
the
understood.
specifics of what they're asking for.
And there is one other issue on the budget calendar. We had a joint meeting scheduled for January 21st, which is a Monday. I'd originally been estimating that there would be a selectmen's meeting, but that's a holiday. So it was suggested at the finance committee meeting that we move that to Tuesday, January 22nd, to their meeting.
So that's item 20 in the calendar.
Correct.
We're already into the calendar. Do you want to do anything else in terms of introductory on the process, guidelines, et cetera? Or do you want to walk us through that calendar, Bonnie?
I think the calendar is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I know we walked through it a few times. But as far as the budget process, what I found was helpful last year is being able to get some targeted goals from the selectmen. I know I have your list of 2019 goals that I share with the departments, but I didn't know if there were particular focuses that I should highlight in the budget directive, or that you might want to consider for the budget directive. We don't have to finalize that tonight.
Yeah.
I don't have to have that up till the end of September,
We
but
definitely had a few items bubble up during the goals process that
Right.
really were budget specific. And maybe we ought to schedule some time, Keith, in on the meeting on the 10th to kind of review the goals for any budget sensitive, items.
the other thing that might be helpful too is, Paul, you mentioned some of the lost departments or lost budgets, people that don't have a
Budget
champion for,
orphans.
yes, budget orphans, that's exactly it. So it might be a good opportunity to identify any of those that might be out there that you want included.
Members have any questions on the calendar, proposed calendar? Finance committee in support of everything on there? You guys already discussed it, have you? Or? School committee, you guys okay with it?
Looks fine.
Boy, this is too easy.
And then I could just give you an update for the fall special town meeting planning, if that's all right.
Sure. What do you?
So I'm at the preliminary stages of planning for the fall town meeting. So right now, what I know that we have available for funding for any projects that might be under consideration by the board. We have some snow and ice money that was left over from fiscal 2018. There's $155,216 available. The town did have a deficit, but we didn't use the full $450,000 that we had planned for. So there is some money that can be appropriated towards one-time capital type expenditures. The other thing that I've asked the Board of Assessors to do is to look at their allowance for abatements to see if there's any overlay release that can happen. Last year, it was quite a large overlay release. It was about $500,000. I wouldn't anticipate it would be in that magnitude this year, but they're good about releasing money as they have cases relieved in the appellate tax court. So I'll have that available for the next board's meeting in September. I also did provide that the stabilization balances as they stand today, there is just over $2.1 million in regular stabilization. That money needs to be set at 5% of the operating budget, and that's exactly what that is set at. So there's no surplus funding in there, it's just left there as a reserve should we need it. Capital stabilization sits at just over 3.1 million, so that is a funding source that's available for a fall town meeting, if there were a project. There is also an old article that looks like it might be ready for closeout, which means it could be available for another project. It's $133,000 remaining from the fuel facility capital account. I believe that the project is completed, but I've asked Chris Stoddard to kind of review it, make sure there's no straggling bills hanging out there that need to be paid. And if that's the case, then that could be reallocated for another project if the town wants to use it, or I'll close it to free cash. And as far as what items...
Well, just on that fuel facility, the 133,000, so the two options are, use it for another project, I'll ask you to kind of insert
Sure.
what potential project or thoughts and ideas there, or it gets rolled back to free cash.
Correct.
It's already been approved, so it goes back to the end as a unit. So what are some potential projects that we have that?
So I've kind of shown you where the funding could come from. The two items that I have, that I'm aware of at this time, are, the first one is supplemental appropriation in the amount of $200,000 for signal upgrades at the high school, to replace that signal system there from the blinking yellow to an automated system.
That's the estimate?
That's the estimate, yes. The other item is a $25,000 item requested from the Master Plan Implementation Committee for costs associated with the zoning consulting services that they're looking for. I haven't received anything formal from any other board, but, you know, we always know that the ladder truck is still out there as an item that, you know, might need to be looked at. I know we're in the process of grant.
Yeah, there may be an opportunity for Chief Wazinski to, with that demo, that we could save a significant amount of money if we looked at purchasing that demo. So I know Chief Wazinski's gonna, we met before this meeting, he's gonna run some numbers and have something to the board, hopefully by next meeting, on just what that looks like.
It was off to Pennsylvania when we last saw it, wasn't it, or where was it?
Yeah, that particular one, yeah, is out on tour. There are a couple demos that are out there that are just about complete, which could offer us a significant saving.
It survived a significant structural test, I can say that. Okay. Anything else? Any members jump in if you have any other comments on the, which are we still on topic A? I guess we are sort of budget related, although we kind of wended from the FY20 process back to the fall special.
We have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
The signal upgrades, that $200,000, that was that a number the state gave us? Is that a number Chris worked up?
Chris.
How comfortable are we with that actual 200 as being the real number, or is it 200 plus or minus 50 right now?
Somewhere between 150 and 200, I think 200 is absolutely.
Yeah, the state gave us a number of 150 to 200,
Okay.
but that was just their estimate, and I think for the project cost, we need to be on the high side.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Chris did, he immediately thought that was.
That should cover it.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that, right, it wasn't
Chris
just,
too.
we're not just taking some anecdote, oh, yeah, it'd be $150, 200, and running with it.
We can try to
We
get
actually
some,
know that to be a
we're reaching out to MassDOT to get some more.
Chris's quote at the meeting was that when Mass DOT has given us estimated project numbers, they typically come in, the actuals have come in lower than what they have initially estimated. So that is a reasonably conservative estimate. Having said that, I don't think anybody's actually scoped this particular project yet to know where within that 150 to 2 is going to fall.
And we may not know that until February, Chris was saying today, so he's pretty comfortable with that number as a conservative number.
And as long as Chris is comfortable with that, I wanted to make sure we weren't running with an anecdote.
Yeah, I know, he is.
And are we in possession of enough information from the state to make an educated judgment as to what it's going to cost?
Well, that was based on, like Keith said, that was based on their estimation, so,
What I'm saying is that they based that on specs, I
yes.
assume.
And Chris compared that to other projects.
So he
that
has
we-
those specs?
Yeah.
Okay. Or if he
We'll
doesn't.
get we'll follow up with MassDOT and get additional information we can. We were also thinking we probably want to have a public information meeting during September to share whatever we know about the project.
And Mass DOT was referencing that particular location. They weren't just saying, oh, a traffic light in a generic
Well, I
sense
get
costs
that. I just
200
don't know
grand.
whether they
They were
share-
specifically referencing that
There's no
light,
specific
because the arm is already up there, you know, that kind of stuff.
But they must have something. in
They had
house.
something,
Yeah.
and we'll get it from
We'll
them.
get it.
Yeah, we'll wrestle with
As long as we're moving in the direction of making sure that's a legitimate number before we put it on the warrant and find out we're 50 grand short.
So this $200,000 acts as a placeholder. What is the likelihood that Mass DOT would fund?
I'd say zero. And if they did, it
Not in
would
a
be,
timely
yeah,
fashion.
and if they did, it would be 6, 7, 8, 10 years, so.
That was the consensus that we reached at that meeting, was that they are making a significant exception to their typical decision-making because they realize the importance to the community in that particular location to have a light there. They said that facilitating the next level of approval for them, because they do have to go through one more approval level, that, and I asked that specific question, like if we have committed as a community to funding it, because $200,000, especially when we think we have some funding available, seemed like it was a reasonable number for something we really want. Would that facilitate to a higher probability that second approval? And they sort of nodded their heads. So, you know, we will be funding this as the way that's the way we agreed to do it.
And this was the
Assuming that we
assumption,
can
but
get
I just
that
didn't know if there was
approval.
any opening there.
No, not really.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, everyone's comfortable with that, we can move on to the topic of financial management policies, annual review. Are you done, Bonnie, with? Chairman, I guess our biggest challenge, Fred, is we gotta get together, right?
Well, the last time we tried it was like herding cats and.
So why don't we just pick a date?
So we can,
Oh, and again, I guess our respective boards have to have their appointments. We generally do chair and vice chair, although that's not written in stone. If we could change that, I'm open.
we're scheduled to meet in a couple of weeks and we'll assign 2 people to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I
So
found
we
in the
could-
past,
we
whether
could-
it's before the FinCom meeting and before a Selectmen meeting, you know, at least a critical mass is already committed to going that night. So, I mean, if you've got a finance committee meeting in a couple of weeks, I wouldn't mind saying, you know, try and get it scheduled an hour before that, you know, and maybe we can come join you or something.
Well, really, don't forget the school committee.
No, I know.
We'll make it work, just pick the date.
There you go. See, I knew he was gonna say that.
See, the meeting after this, what, the 24th?
In Joe.
Why don't we shoot for the 24th?
You guys made that 12. You done that September? No, maybe
Have a
you
meeting on the
maybe you
24th?
oughta. Oh, you,
That we, yeah, we'd talk about it on the 11th and then on the 24th.
that was one meeting we had.
September 25th.
Yeah, we have 2.
Yeah, we have a meeting scheduled as September 24th, so before that would be fine. We could do 6 o'clock or 6:30 or whatever, and then we'd fold into our finance committee meeting. That works for you guys. I know
Is that
that
Monday
It's
or
the 25th,
it's a Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday the 25th.
Tuesday the 25th of August? Yeah.
Of
Oh,
September.
September, okay.
Yeah.
We got a joint meeting on the 24th.
Right, the 24th will be.
It's a Monday. Our joint meeting, our
Your
next
joint meeting is at a selectmen's meeting. right?
Correct.
On the 24th.
Do you have a meeting the
So
next
we
night too?
could do that
Apparently
before that
not.
meeting. Do it Monday, that 24th, then.
They don't do it on.
Meet at
Yeah,
lunch.
that's not an issue with me, or you, right? We're both local.
So Monday, the 24th at 5:30. You want to give yourself an hour?
Yeah,
Where do you want to
and
start?
maybe staff, Bonnie and Steve can come in and make, you know, kind of, I don't know if you have things that you want to address that aren't in here, or whether we just go back, Fred, and we can just review what's already in there, if there's new eyes at the, looking at it, or just a good chance for all of us to review, and if anybody's got any topics they think should be in here that aren't, or changes, you know, bring it up then, or, yeah, we probably should try to get them on the table as early as possible. And that goes for all members. If you've got topics you think either in reading this you want to see us address differently or address that aren't in here, you know, let one of us know who's involved in it. We'll try to get it in there.
Discussion.
Yep. That work for staff? Okay, so we're looking at the 24th of September at 5:30. And I guess it'll probably be Joe and I from our board. Mike, are you the,
We'll set our budget subcommittee, so that's me and Matt.
okay. And you guys?
And we'll let you know.
Okay, great. Audit review. Just bring the books. We got these back in June. I've forgotten already what they said. I'm sure if there was anything terrible in there, I'd remember it.
No money missing?
No, nobody ran for the border. You guys had a chance to meet with the auditors. Fred, do you want to characterize the discussion? Was it much there?
No, in general, I mean, you know, it was an excellent review. One thing that he did say was that we have been riding a pretty good wave of new growth and spending that goes along with new growth. And just be cautious going forward and think about what happens when new growth slows down. And that was really, and anybody else that was there, please speak up, but that's the one thing that I remember him actually cautioning us on. But other than that.
Did we have any corrective actions we had to address? Nothing.
No, it was really excellent.
Yeah, he cited Littleton and another town as two of the best run towns that he works with.
It's always town X and another town.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, one thing that did stick out to me, it was, he mentioned, it actually caught my attention, is our tax. We don't, communities that typically are doing this well tend to really be careful with their taxes when things are going really well.
Right.
And they don't do increases, everything's just, he said that's when you should kind of be doing it. So when times are bad, you don't have to do it as much. So it's kind of a reverse way of looking at it it kind of just, you know, that's interesting that he said it as an auditor, that was a little worrisome to him, I think, when not a concern, but just something to think about, that's all. He said it becomes it's more of a political thing than it is smart finances, when you're saying, oh, well, you're going to save 17 cents off your time, you know, when that's maybe not the time. So, just something to think about.
We haven't discussed it in depth, but I broached the subject, and it's been talked about before, that some folks think it's good financial practice to rotate your auditor after 3 or 4 years, even if you're very happy with them, just to have different eyes looking at it. And Dick Hingston's been great. Judge Hingston, no complaints there, but have you guys given any thought to that? Have you had any discussion on that? Even if we rotated somebody in for a year or so and then brought them back? Is that something we maybe want to talk about at the financial policies, this group? Or obviously, I welcome any discussion now. I don't think so.
Dick is engaged through the 2017 audit, so this year he'll be in doing the last fiscal year's audit, and then his contract is up. I have worked in communities where what we do is change one of the principals. Instead of having Dick come out, have his partner, Jim Gisty, come out. But typically when his contract is ready for renewal, and I've asked him to send one out when I looked at the dates, I'll get a price on what audit services are for other surrounding communities, just to kind of make everybody sharpen their pencils a little.
In my impulse here is not driven by the cost, but just the whole notion of having people with a different protocol come in and maybe see something that we've all got so used to we don't see, including our auditors.
I've had other audit firms in other communities, and Dick is not an easy audit. He is a paper tornado. I've had audit services from some very large firms that are what I would consider more drive-by. I think they take your financial statements, they look at them, they test them, they validate everything, and then they come back and they hand them back to you and give you your management letter. Dick rips through everything when he's here, so I tend to like that because he'll always find something that we need to improve on. And he always
But he
has.
didn't this year.
He actually did.
He did, he brings up things for the future, like the federal reporting requirement for school grants. And Steve, Mark and I, had talked about that. So we're ahead of setting the policies on that, so when he comes in and he has to audit it, that's already in place. So he's good in having that foresight, so that I'm not reacting to things, I'm planning for them. So I do like that, a lot of audit firms don't, but I'm happy to do, whatever.
Well, I'm not gonna be the dead horse, and I will reserve the right to raise that issue annually. Whenever we go through with board members, any questions? I mean, if you haven't been, if the audit process and reports aren't all that familiar to you, please ask questions.
The only comment that I have actually is on a pecuniary detail, and that's in that ambulance accounts receivable. The auditor noted that we transfer all the risk to the vendor. And I've brought this up a couple times before, that also transfers the discretion to the vendor. And, I mean, we're just getting into some of this with the new vendor. I just want to keep an eye on it to make sure that we don't have a vendor that is hounding our residents who are not necessarily in positions to pay. I have no indication that that's a problem, but the idea that all of the risk is transferred to the vendor also incentivizes that kind of behavior. So staying on top of that behavior is a priority.
Is he still here? Or
You're in the center room.
All pro. Had you thought about that? Or you-
Actually, we talked about that tonight,
You
looking
did?
at the ambulance receipts. And I want to get a good, solid first quarter under our belts before we analyze them. So I'm thinking the end of December, I'll have, everything will have caught up as far as the timeline. I'll have a good quarter to base my estimates on. So for the January meeting, we'll have some good numbers to review and see what the collections are.
That warms my heart that it's already come up. So.
Right, no, in the discussion that we had, basically said, part of the justification was the business plan that Chief and Bonnie put together to justify the incremental heads. So the right thing for us to do is to review how we're doing against that plan.
Yep.
And I think similarly with the sewer coming on, where you're looking at generating revenue, what do we expect to generate? And then as we get into it, we'll look back and say, gee, we're doing pretty well, or whoops, what we didn't do quite as well as we thought we were going to do. So I think a similar kind of thing as we come forward with the request to spend a lot of money, we should at least look at that small piece of it, which is the business side of it, so we can, people ask questions, you can have an answer that says, yeah, we looked at it, this is what we expect, and we will be measuring it as we are the ambulance. So just.
And my take on it is that as much as for the ambulance services in particular, as much as our projections have shown from a pure business perspective that it actually could potentially make money for the town, I don't necessarily object to us losing money, if you will, on the business aspect of it, because we are providing a service to the town. I just want to make sure we know what's essentially the general fund subsidy of that additional service. And if what we have to do is make it clear to the taxpayer, you know what, the town, loses $50,000 on this, but we're able to provide a much higher quality of service to our residents, then that's fine, we can make that argument. But I would like to understand.
Right, but what you really need to do is make sure that we aren't totally out in left field.
Exactly.
Because the next time something like this comes up, you want to be able to have some level of confidence in your business planning ability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really why, I think that's why you circle back.
Yep. No, I think that's good.
Anything else relative to the audit? Anybody? No. Okay. Munis, update.
Hey.
Where are we at?
We are-
Just fine, thank you
yeah.
very much.
So July 1st was the first major deadline to make as far as going live. And we were able to go live with our core financials, which includes general ledger, accounts payable, and general receipts. We have had, knock on wood, very few problems, issues. I would say we've had no catastrophic issues, which was, my whole being was worried about, just making sure that this process would work. So I'm very pleased in that we've made that hurdle. That's not to say we don't have little cleanup items to address. I would point out that this system is much more robust and much more complicated because it's more robust than our prior system, which was more plug and play. It had a system, it came designed a certain way, and that's the only way you could use it. Munis, everything you set up, design yourself, and every community uses it differently than the next community. So Michelle and I spent quite a bit of time with other departments involving the school department. Robin and Steve were an integral part of setting up the design and the workflow and how it will work.
So we're all integrated now, and
We are
at
for
that level?
accounts payable and general ledger. The next big phase is tax collections, which are coming on in the fall. We had to push that a little bit. We had our tax collector who needed some surgery, so we had to kind of move things around. And we're shooting for payroll for January. Payroll is also very intensive in the setup. There's a lot of different charts and menus and design and coding that needs to happen that Steve and Ann in our treasurer's office are working very hard on. They're hoping that they'll have it for January. It might slide to April depending on how much of this work can get done. It is very intensive on staff demands. We're doing a lot of this stuff all around the clock. So it is. I knew it was going to be a big demand on resources. It's more than I imagined, but it's a really good product. I also want to say that the training was very successful with the staff. We had training for about 3 months just for core financials and accounts payable, like March, April, and May. The staff was unbelievably committed in the training sessions, and it was a lot of time, that they had to take out of their day to actually come down. We had it at the fire station most often, and some people had spent, more than one day sitting in there going through the training. But they were very cooperative. I will say that the process that they use now for accounts payable does take longer than the old system, but it does provide a lot more information. So they can scan their own invoices in, everything is into the system, so that now when they have a question, they can do an account inquiry, they can see the actual information with descriptions, and then the invoice itself that they originally paid. So it's a lot less questions down the road, and it's a lot more transparency. Any other department can go in and look at invoices too. So once we open up that portal to the citizens' transparency, that's going to be there also.
And citizens will actually be able to pull up an
Yes.
individual invoice
Yes, they will.
for whatever.
And where is that in the timeline? I know you're going to address timeline.
There's like a 60-day rollout on it, so we're meeting next week, and I'm going to ask them to start that. Now that we know that the general ledger is working, I didn't want them to roll it until I knew that the components were mapped properly, and they are. So
Bonnie, you said it was time-consuming and complex. Does it stay that way, or when it's finally set up, will it be a lot easier?
it will be easier once we're all rolled out. The problem is, you set it up, you decide how you want it set up, and then you hit yourself, like, why did I want it set up like that? And you do that through testing, and the departments, like I said, they were unbelievable in helping me test the system. We wanted to implement workflow, which basically means if I key in an invoice, my supervisor has to approve it. Well, it's not a sign the invoice and, put it in there. It's an electronic approval. So you have to design that. Are there limits, and on what accounts, and who needs to approve it first? Now, there are going to be secondary levels. Anthony is the chief procurement officer. He has to approve everything over $10,000. So you have to design that in workflow. But it creates an electronic signature on everything that happens. So you have a really good audit trail. You can see where things are in process, but it's a lot of design.
How are you collecting feedback from staff on, you said that they've been integral in sort of designing the workflows?
Yeah. Well, when we did the testing in the spring, We had, departments, admins and their supervisors come in and actually test things out. So, you got feedback right away when things didn't work or,
That was exactly what, I wanted to make sure we were getting feedback, not just from the supervisors, but from all levels that were.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say enough about the participation from the employees. We would not have been as successful in rolling this section out without their input. And we'll have the same thing in payroll. We'll do the same kind of group testing.
Why, was there a mirror system? You went from system, what was the old stuff called?
SoftWrite.
SoftWrite to Munis. Was there a mirror SoftWrite system set up at the fire station that allowed you to do the training, kind of almost like a benchmark? Or
Munis is, it's cloud-based, so we're able to access it in any building, easily. SoftWrite, it's in the server, so you have to have access to our server. So this is the way that things are going in the future, the
the
cloud-based.
reason I asked the question is because we just integrated the whole new ERP system, and it's cloud-based.
Yep.
But we had both systems running simultaneously, so we were able to.
Did you run parallel? Is that?
We did run parallel.
Yeah, we're not running parallel for accounts payable. We've been validating every warrant, so, we are in balance, every warrant. We will be running parallel for payroll.
And just from, it's already happened, but from a training standpoint, we didn't have the resources to be able to go off-site and do the training. So just, if people are showing up at the tax collector's window or the assessor's office, wherever, if there's no one there because they're at training.
Yeah, we
had
coordinated
something
that.
to do
We had to do some staggering and run multiple sessions so that, you wouldn't decimate an office to do the training. And a lot of the administrative staff participated in a couple of sessions because they wanted to be more comfortable with it, so.
Do you have plans for follow-up training? I mean, now that staff has sort of gotten into the weeds a little bit, would there be value in doing a supplemental?
We already did that once,
Okay.
and we're gonna have
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Right. Oh, I screwed that up 4 or 5
I know what they
times.
don't
Yeah,
know now.
that's it.
Yeah, actually, we did one right in July after we went live, because, we did all the training in April, and then they go back and key in their warrants in SoftWrite and do all their SoftWrite stuff, and haven't really used the new system in a month. So we had another, refresher in July. I imagine that we're gonna do these quarterly, because we're gonna add on new components. We're gonna be, adding payroll, we're gonna add on fixed assets, we're gonna add on bid management. So and staff is gonna change. So we're gonna have to run these quarterly.
How are you finding the support?
Pretty good. They have 5 different ways that you can get support. You can log your case online, you can call. There's Tyler Community, so any other community that's using that product, Munis, you can get information. I tried this and it didn't work. How about you? You get a lot of feedback that way. There's the knowledge base, which has kind of like a workflow for everything that they do. It's more cookie cutter because you tailor your own system, but it gives you all of the functionality, so you can follow through on it. But I had a case that I logged.
Talking to a human?
Yeah, you can do,
Old school.
yeah, like a go-to meeting, and they'll log right into your system if you allow them the capability. But I had a case today that I logged at 5, and I had it resolved at 5:19. It was a small issue, but they got right on and took care of it, so, yeah.
Yeah.
What about extended workflow with PMBC, for the warrant process and the projects they're managing? How does that get integrated into this?
We have, I'm not sure who's entering the PMBC warrants right now.
Sue was.
Or is it Diane?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think Sue was, but she said in an email she's changing roles or something.
Yeah, so what we can do is, we need to sit down with TNBC, because there's a really amazing capability to set up projects. So you might have one article that's, $200,000, but maybe you want to do 4 things in that.
Yeah.
So we can create little projects for you, and you can track them over the life of the project, not just fiscal year.
Yeah, because the warrant workflow is rough with the multiple projects and the people overseeing them, as whereas they get routed through the town. And then if I can get out of maintaining my own spreadsheet
That's my goal too. Yeah, that's kind of the next phase of this. I want to get your PMBC project accounting online, along with the fixed assets, because that's kind of a nice fit, because you guys, really all your projects are fixed assets. So.
Great.
Oh, sorry,
Go right ahead.
another couple questions for you, Bunny. Have you started to implement plans for training on an onboarding basis, or is that coming later? How is training during onboarding for new staff integrating into this?
Michelle really meets with any of the new employees that come online, my assistant. And so she'll do like one-on-one training with them as they come on. But I still think that we're gonna need to do this quarterly refresher and just allow people to ask questions, because somebody might use an application all the time and somebody else doesn't, and there's always good questions that come out of it when it's kind of audience-driven, with some structure on, what we want to cover. But yeah, right now, Michelle really meets with everybody.
Okay, so right now, onboarding is sort of a one-on-one training process. Is it adding any additional time to the onboarding process?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, like I said, it's a more complicated system to use, but.
And because it's not cookie cutter, it's Littleton specific, is that?
Yeah, it is.
Correct.
But again, it's a more robust product. We have data that we need in the system. We're not constantly going to a filing cabinet and pulling out accounts and.
Okay. Is there, in terms of onboarding and in terms of, to the extent possible, minimizing the training time, how are we documenting the important lessons learned from, you mentioned let's do these trainings quarterly. I would hope at some point we're documenting the lessons learned so that we don't have to spend, town staff-wide, every quarter training to do the same things that was already resolved 2 years ago.
SOPs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, Michelle and I created a whole folder full of what I call workflows.
Okay.
So when we train people, we do screenshots, like, literally click here, it should look like this. Highlighted the little, menu that they need to hit, and then the next step.
My IT staff has quite condescendingly started sending me videos of click on this,
Yes.
then click on this.
But that's what we got positive feedback on. People, they're walking away with that, and we can email it to anybody that, might need it. If we
Okay.
change something, we just, change the workflow.
Okay. So we're documenting these
Yes.
and sort of archiving them
Yeah.
for Littleton-specific trainings.
Yes.
How about, just following on that thought, with the general public's access, or the impact will be through the website and be specifically through the open checkbook capabilities.
Correct.
Are we doing anything yet, or do they help us make that easy to navigate for the visitor, and, how are we addressing
Yeah,
that?
my
Are there other
under-
ways we?
My understanding is they're gonna come out and we're gonna design it, how far down we
In
want people to
conjunction with
go.
our website?
Yeah, there'll be a link, and then it'll take you right to the Tyler hosted site. But it will be right on our page. And the data, we can, for example, we can say you can't drill down to the invoice level. We don't want people to see invoices. Or, yeah, we want them to see the invoices, we don't care. Some communities, want a lot of transparency, and some just want summary detail. Same thing with payroll. So the town gets to decide what level of detail we're gonna drill down to. So once I get the schedule from them, I thought I would come back to the board and say, I don't know if you guys want to have some input into what you want to see on the website, what level of detail you want to see? Or-
I think so, because it's the one piece of all of this that the public actually is gonna, potentially have an engagement with. And their ease of operating it, the level of detail that, they may want, and how evident the whole thing is on our webpage, I think are important components.
Would that be something that you would want to go to the financial policies group, or just?
Well, I don't know if that's so much financial in nature as it is just, public access, but I mean.
Embrace it, if the policies embrace it.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss it there, but I think it's just important to have it in front of this board too. I mean, now that people are aware of that, I assume we'll get some feedback.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to see as much transparency as is navigable, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
additional transparency that actually detracts from the utility would be counter.
It's all been public record anyways, we're just making, you were taking advantage of the easiest means to get people access to it.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it's one opinion, but we'll see what people say, see what board members say.
Would it be feasible, Bonnie, to have a demonstration before things actually go live, so we could see what different,
Yeah, it might be.
different flavors of depth might look
Yeah,
like?
they have, several communities that are using this citizens transparency module. So I can ask them, I can arrange for them to come out and show you a couple of other communities and what their drill downs look like. Some that are high level, some that are detail, so you can kind of get a sense of what you'd like to see.
In the interim, would you mind to dig up what those communities might be and
Oh,
just
yeah,
circulate
yeah.
that? That would
Yeah.
be very helpful.
Sure.
I'm actually sure that we've already asked you to do that, and you've probably already sent it, but I'm gonna ask you to
It was
dig
like
through your
last
email
year,
and send
so
it
don't
again.
worry.
All right. School committee, finance committee, any further comment on the munis? You guys getting any feedback from your staff on this yet, Kelly, Mike?
I've heard nothing, which I consider good.
It's going well. Kelly?
It's going well.
It's going well, good. Good. All right. Well, terrific then. We'll transition into the next topic then, unless anyone else has anything to add to the joint meeting agenda. Our next agenda topic is of interest of all the boards that we just met with anyway, so glad you're here. Town Administrator Selection Committee, we began this process last week. We, the selectmen, had 2 appointments to make. First is our for the Town Administrator Selection Committee. We have the at-large with municipal management experience, and we have the selectman member. Believe we have 3 applicants, is that right, Keith,
That's right.
for the first one?
I see them all.
Okay, and as they leave, thank you, FinCom.
Did FinCom appoint their?
Oh, yeah, that's right, somebody's still here.
Gary.
Who's Gary?
Yes.
Okay, good, FinCom has made a nomination, and I know, Anita, you're the Personnel Committee appointee, congratulations. Terrific, Anita Harding, and School Committee, and it's you, Michael, a veteran. You were on last time around 12 years ago, weren't you?
I'm going to get it right this time.
Gradual improvement, that's always the goal.
Okay. Then, unless the board has any objection, I don't think there's any protocol here, but I know we did receive letters. Everybody, there was an addition on Friday and an addition today. Did all the members see that to our applicant pool? Nobody's, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Chase.
Pull something up here. If the board's ready, I can just start inviting up our applicants for the at-large municipal management experience candidates and begin a informal interview process?
Sure.
Okay. I see Kate Hodges back there, one-time familiar face to us. Would you mind coming forward? You've put in a letter of interest here. How are things in Concord?
Great.
Great, good. All right. You're obviously familiar with the committee we're appointing in the process, otherwise you wouldn't have applied, but I guess we probably would like to hear a little bit from you, and we appreciate your detailed letter explaining your background, but if you want to tell us a little bit about your interest here and what you think we might want to particularly consider.
Sure. So I've worked in municipal government for about 20 or so years now. I started as a recreation, parks, and outdoor services director in Connecticut, where I worked for about 5 years. I was hired by the town of Littleton as the Parks, Recreation, and Community Education Director in 2008. I moved from Connecticut up to Massachusetts with my twin boys and worked here for a period of 8 years. It was excellent. I had a wonderful job. I answered to a wonderful commission, and I met great people, and I decided to go back to school at nighttime and get my master's, and my commission was very supportive of that. I received my master's in public administration and public policy in 2012. I was hired by the town of Concord as their assistant town manager in 2015. And then I think right before that I had another son, almost here in the townhouse, which is a very interesting story. Just had to get one more thing done before I left. And so then I've been working in the town of Concord for about 4 years. When I started, my predecessor was in the role for almost 15 years. He had come from the police department. I can say that assistant town manager jobs are different, or assistant town administrator jobs are different in every community. And so no matter who I meet, we always are interested in talking to one another about what we do. So as I said in my letter, I'm responsible for human services, which includes council on aging, veterans, youth services, and recreation. Recreation in Concord also includes the Beatty Center. I also do all of our land negotiations for purchasing properties and developing properties. We just recently got a property that we bought from a private citizen for development for 7 acres of parkland, and we were just gifted White Pond, which is actually near where your current town administrator lives, and we'll be taking that over. I am the ADA coordinator. I'm the harassment officer. I negotiate public safety contracts and do all of that work. Work closely with human resources. I'm in charge of facilities, sustainability, which is a new initiative, public information, and the newly taken over PEG access station, which will become the town of Concord's October 1st. I'm sure that there's things I'm missing, but so I have a pretty wide scope of understanding. My own town manager is going to be retiring in some number of months, so it's been helpful for me to work under a town administrator form of government, a town manager form of government. I think he's exposed me to a lot of things that could be helpful, and I just have an interest in seeing Littleton get someone wonderful for the position, because I really enjoyed my time here. And I come back and visit a lot. We play sports on the new turf fields, and I was happy to see that completed, because that sort of started when I was here. So it's, I don't know if there's any specific questions that I can answer.
Just was going to get to board members, if you've covered it pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Board members, any?
We'll start down with
All right,
Joe,
Joe.
please.
All right,
Yeah.
you explained her background pretty well.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. Welcome back, Kate. So I'm just gonna, your application was pretty inclusive, but one of the things that stood out to me was your involvement with the MMA and the different associations within your profession. Just kind of highlight some of that. You talked about everything you've done
Sure.
up to this point, but some of those things I think are important to highlight.
It's too Concord focused. That's what they drill in us.
Yeah.
So I am a member of the Mass Municipal Managers Association, which is a subset of the Mass Municipal Association. I'm also a member of, at large, of the Mass Municipal Association, which is, I think, probably very familiar to this group, but Mass Managers Association is mostly town managers, assistant town managers, some town administrators. So I have served on that board for 2 years now. I think I was appointed, 2 years ago. I am also a member of the ICMA, which is the International City Managers Association. I recently received the designation of credentialed manager from them, which is about, there's 1,300 members worldwide who have that designation, only 30 in Massachusetts. So that was an exciting thing for me. It involves
some exams and some written work and some proven success in government. So I'm an active member of ICMA. I'm on their ethics commission. I'm able to attend their annual conferences as long as my family schedule allows. And so I've been able to go around and see how other communities do it. Most of my traveling has been in the Northeast, but this year's conference is further south, so that should be fun. And I have recently been accepted to the ICMA Leadership School, so that's something that's exciting. That'll be starting this spring in 2019. It's held in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where you learn leadership techniques through the Battle of Gettysburg, through history and that kind of stuff, which is really interesting to me. So that's my involvement there.
Chase?
Yeah, I wanted to know if you could articulate your expertise in philosophy when it comes to hiring. Right? Because sitting on this committee, what we're trying to do is narrow down so that 5 of us have a reasonable subset. So I'd like to hear what your expertise in philosophy is when it comes to making hiring decisions and interviewing candidates.
Sure. So I have much wider involvement in hiring now at the town of Concord than I did here. My hiring was relative to one division, although we had subsets. It was basically with the same focus. So we've recently hired an assistant fire chief, a police captain, planning and land management assistant director, and we're in the process of hiring an assistant director for our municipal light plant. So in all of those, my role tends to be more on the human services side. I think my undergraduate was in sociology and psychology. I worked as a social worker and a counselor for a number of years, at least for the first part of my professional career before my children were born. And so a lot of the questions that I ask are about how you interact as a team and how you deal with adversity and how you work to motivate people. I like to read body language. I like to sit back when other people are asking questions and see how the question was received, people's comfort level or not comfort level, things that they feel passionate about. I think when you start to talk to someone, you can tell within the first probably 20 minutes if you're asking the right questions, what they're really passionate about, what they dig in about, and some areas that they may not be too well versed in but are willing to learn. I think I have found success with supervisors who are inclusive, who make sure that they have a 50-foot level global idea of where you're going in the end, but make sure that they're taking care of the way to get there. I've been, I don't want to say criticized, but when I've gotten feedback, it's always been that I'm running, and if someone's not running next to me, I'm dragging them along. So I try to make sure that I am well-versed in who the number 2 is or who the division managers and department heads are, and you get someone that not only complements that, but isn't necessarily plagued with the same faults in a way, so it's a good team atmosphere. It's a compliment. And someone who, I'm always very impressed when someone comes in and they know a lot about the community. I mean, we come in and you ask, what do you know about the town of X? And, they tell you things, and it's evident that they read the master plan, they read the strategic plan, they've watched the meetings, then you know that it's someone that's interested, and that's really important. I think a lot of things can be taught. You can learn a lot of things. You can get that institutional knowledge by being there, but you have to want to be there. So I think Littleton's going to want someone who loves Littleton.
Have you ever made a hiring decision or recommendation and, without divulging specifics, found out they weren't a good fit?
Sure did. Yeah, that's uncomfortable.
What did you learn?
What did I learn?
What did you learn about the hiring process in particular there that made you better next time around that could be applicable to this hiring process?
Involving different people in the process, involving folks that have a different outlook. That comes with the experience. Actually, making a bad hire, although it's horrible when you're dealing with that, is helpful as a manager to understand that when I'm going in and developing a panel, the people that I have to pull and ask to be on my panel. And some of those people are the people that I have the most colorful conversations with in bargaining, and people who, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, we're gonna shake hands, but it's, I just don't understand where you're coming from, because that's your dynamic. And so whoever are your panelists, I think it's important that, you know, we kind of get to know one another a bit and understand those strengths and weaknesses and the perspective and where that's coming from, because it's very easy if you have all like-minded individuals on a panel, because then the decision is easy, but you didn't dig deep enough, you didn't ask the hard questions. In the case that I'm thinking of, we were semi-like-minded people. I think we didn't necessarily have a true understanding of what we needed at the time, and so we thought, you know, resume heavy, experience heavy, went less on personality heavy, and that was not a good decision in that particular role. We fixed it, by the way, since then.
I don't know anyone who does a lot of hiring who doesn't have exactly one of those. Ooh, we missed bad on that.
Yes, yeah. And it makes you nervous the next time, particularly if it's for the same position. And I was trying to get off the committee, except for it's my person, so.
Thank you for your candor.
Sure.
Cindy?
I honestly don't have any questions or comments. I mean, you're articulate, you're very thorough in your responses. You're certainly, your education and experience speaks for itself. I loved your responses to Chase's questions, so I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Great.
I've got two. Do you live in Littleton?
No, I do not.
Okay. And you mentioned that Concord, your manager's announced his retirement. Is that going to be something that might change your availability somewhere along the way?
How long is your process?
Oh, we don't
Leaving in
know.
10 months.
I don't know, how long, oh, he's leaving in 10 months.
Yeah. No, I would think not. No, I think the town manager in Concord is very supportive of communities helping other communities. That's one of the things that I admire the most about him. And so we've had a very candid conversation about getting involved in something like this, just as we did when I was choosing to get involved in Mass Municipal Managers Association and other things. And I think he is a big advocate for, you know, growing and learning and finding avenues to do that and utilizing skill sets. And he has often put me in roles where hiring and other things that are HR related or things that need that special focus on just sort of reading the room. And so, yeah, we've talked openly about it. I think he's hugely supportive of it. And I don't miss deadlines, so I promised I wouldn't.
Any further questions, comments? Anything else to add?
I wish you luck.
All right,
I
thank you.
think it's exciting.
Thank you.
And for you too.
See you when the BD's
Absolutely.
reopened after the closing. Thanks.
Okay, Bill Schmidt, like to come join us? Saw you here a couple of weeks ago, happy to have you back.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back.
All right, I think all the members here know you to some extent, but please refresh us with a little bit about your background and your interest in this, and we'll just repeat the process we just did.
Okay, thank you. Littleton resident, former elected official in town. I have about 35 years in human resources as either a consultant or as a administrator, manager. I've been associated with at least 6 municipalities as a consultant or an employee. I was director of personnel in the town of Arlington. I was a consultant, a management consultant doing engineering work and organization development for Worcester, Newton, Waterbury, Vermont, Arlington, and 2 communities in Pennsylvania and another one in Ohio. My prime role was, in essence, acting either as an HR manager or as a recruiter. When I was a consultant, I was a professional recruiter. And I've had the ability to learn a lot from some of my past mistakes, where you have maybe the greatest actor going who looks perfect on paper, comes into an interview, is absolutely beautiful, and ends all falling on his or her face later. You regret those, but that's, I guess you could call it in some of the win and losses, mostly win side. I've had the responsibility in municipal, state, and federal governments to do a lot of hiring of senior level people. I've been on numerous selection committees. I've had the responsibility in Arlington to do direct hires, go through the whole recruitment process, the sourcing, and then enrollment into the systems there. I guess in my tenure as a consultant, I've been in about 50 or 60 different organizations where I've had responsibilities working down from president to the lower level jobs, and I'll use only as an example, maybe a sweeper or something like that. So I know what goes on within an organization by keeping my eyes and ears open and observing what goes on. As an industrial engineer, I've been able to go into a facility, find out where they're at, where they want to go, and assist them in getting from A to B. So I have a good understanding of what it takes to do a particular job, what to look for to fill that job. So pretty much in a nutshell. So I've got a lot of experience, both municipal, state, and federal.
Okay. Well, it's okay, I'll start on the opposite end this time, Cindy, if you're not, I can.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
all right.
honestly,
I'll look for somebody who's not
struggling
writing
for the
already.
words. Yeah,
All right.
no, I
Chuck,
know.
go right ahead.
So Bill, thanks for being here and applying, appreciate it. Had the pleasure of serving with Bill on the personnel board for a brief time, but appreciate his wisdom and his expertise in the area of personnel and HR. In your capacity, working with municipalities, I'm just going to kind of say along the same vein as with Kate, were there associations that you were affiliated with, and just kind of highlight what those were?
Yeah, I was on the board of directors for the Mass Municipal Personnel Association. I was a member of the MAA, American Association of Management, college and university personnel associations. So when I'm in a particular function, I try to get all the assistance I can from the associations because I like to work with people to gather information. I don't like to do it on my own. So when I was on Mass Municipal Personnel Association, I tried to get good liaison with the other people within that organization so that if I had a problem or a challenge, I could go to them to get their suggestions. That's just a few. Since I'm now retired, I'm no longer members of those associations, but you know, I still have some contacts.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when was your last involvement with municipality as far as municipal management?
As an employee, it was the town of Arlington. As a consultant, it's been Waterbury, Connecticut, and Worcester, and Newton. They're the last three.
How recently?
Within the last 6 years.
Okay. Chase, you ready? Do you have any questions?
Sure. So in your experience, is there anything unique about hiring at the top executive level that is different from hiring, you know, more mid-level or subordinate type positions?
Yeah, there is a difference. In a normal hiring process, once you establish your goalposts of what you need and how you're going to get there, you have to follow the basic rules to all those that you're interviewing. When you get into the senior level management, there's things that are on paper that stand out. That's your initial screening process. Do they meet the qualifications that you've established? Do they have the experience, right? or the length of experience. You can also get into the interview process with your set of questions that every person is going to get. So if you have 5 set questions, everybody that you interview is going to have those 5 set. If the Board of Selectmen in this case says, this is what we're looking for, all right, you can interpret that onto one, okay, let's get a paper trail to say, okay, do they meet the criteria here? Now, if they want somebody who is dynamic, it's difficult looking on paper to see if they are dynamic. You can only do that by the interview process in itself. So yes, there is some differences, but you still have to follow the same basic rules.
And in terms of structuring an interview process to try and understand experience versus the softer skills, how would you want to structure an interview process to really go at the softer skills? What's your strategy there to understand leadership, dynamism, the honesty, integrity? Personally, what's your philosophy to get at those ideas?
Once I have established, probably say, I'll go as a lead interviewer. Once I have established what we're looking for, all right, in the education, we'll take piece by piece by piece. In the education, okay, you have a degree from where? Okay, getting more information from that, what was your major? What was your minors? What were some of your interests? What were some of your activities that you did? Right, to find out, okay, is this person just a book person, or do they actually become involved?
Mm-hmm.
The experience, okay, you have X number of years or months or days of experience in what areas, and how did you use that experience? What did you learn from that experience? How can you take that experience that you've got here and bring it to Littleton and say, okay, it's going to fit? Well, I learned this over here, and I think it could really work here. So you have to come up with leading questions that can come up with finite answers.
So what's more important than that, the experience itself or the candidate's demonstration or ability to translate that experience to something Littleton specific? What's more valuable?
It's the ability to utilize what they've learned and integrate that into Littleton. All right. I can have 10 years of experience catching dogs. Does that relate? No. But I did it for so-and-so who also made me do this. Or they added to it and said, okay, you're not only doing that, no, now you're my guard. Or no, now you're my personal assistant. Oh, no, now you're my right hand. All right. So you have to ask those leading questions to find out how that really fits and can you utilize it. Then you have to make a determination. Hey, you've got 20 years of experience. Oh, that's 1 year of experience 20 times. So you have to dig and dig and dig.
Thank you. Okay. Cindy?
Sure. So aside from professional characteristics, what personal characteristics would you look for in someone that would make you feel they would be a good fit for Littleton?
That's a difficult answer to question to answer. I think it's extremely difficult to take someone's personality and view it against somebody else's personality. Personality to me is someone who can communicate well, come up with a good rapport. Other than that, I don't think there's much you can make a determination of, hey, good personality. But, I mean, there's always that question. Someone who can communicate well always has an advantage over someone who's a stick in the mud like myself.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, I think we need to talk to you about the personnel board things tomorrow. I'm going to finish up doing that. So, one quick thing: how important is it to find out what the motivation was for someone who's applying for a job? And I'm saying, how do you draw out if this person's applying as a stepping stone, or is it they
plan on staying longer?
Simple question. Why do you want the job? What are you going to bring to us that's going to make the job better? Or can you really accomplish what we're looking for, right? You have to determine, if you can, what their motivation is. And it's really easy. Why do you want the job? All right? That's the first step. Once they respond to that, then you can ask subsequent questions to really bring out more information. But it's going to be difficult to say, okay, you're going to be here for what, 2 years? 3 years? And then you're gone? Question like that, you really can't answer. You can't ask, really. You can't ask how long they intend to stay. If it's a female, oh, do you intend to become pregnant soon? You can't ask those questions. All right? So what you have to do is say, here, we got a good job. It's a good, steady job. Do you want it, and why do you want it?
Thank you.
No, sorry.
Always learn something every time I have the opportunity to hear you speak to us. Appreciate that, Bill.
Sure.
I have just a obvious question based on the structure we have. We have a 5-member committee, as you know, and one of those slots is already designated for Personnel Committee appointment, and Anita is serving in that.
Right.
Given the limited number of seats we have to fill, is there anything that, you want us to think in specific consideration of yourself that distinguishes you apart from that role as a Personnel Committee representative with a focus and experience on personnel?
Oh, no. If I'm going to do personnel board work, I do personnel board work. If I'm going to go out and cut the grass, as an example, I'm going to cut the grass. I'm not going to put the two together. I think there's a need for a personnel professional who has the experience of high-level recruitment and retention to be on the selection committee, because it's going to be tough to replace someone over here. All right? That's going to be the biggest challenge. But I think we can get out there and beat the bushes, as the expression goes, whether it's internal or external, to find the best candidate for Littleton.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Good. Thank you much.
All right. Our third candidate, Tim Goddard. You come up and join us, Tim? Sure. I trust sitting back there in the audience, you heard how we were proceeding, so you can pick up and take it however you want.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Keith, Anthony. I think most of you know my background, I won't go into that history. I think what brings me here tonight is basically is one of the 3 individuals who held this job over the past 30 years. I have an interest in seeing that the town gets it right and hires the best individual that we can, that can continue, on the progress that's been made, the level of professionalism that we've seen in the position, and, quite frankly, improve upon the stability that the town has enjoyed. When I learned that Keith was retiring, this is the moderator. I immediately thought of the bylaw. I was moderator when we passed the bylaw. And I thought, geez, that's a very specific requirement for the at-large member to be, someone with municipal management experience. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I've got 2 decades plus of direct municipal management experience, the first 10 years or so here, the balance in Framingham and in Carlisle. And I think I can bring a lot to the table in terms of helping the board, helping the committee along the way with the search process. I've been involved in many recruitments here and elsewhere over the years, so I have an idea of how what a good process is. Frankly, Littleton well, this won't surprise you, I mean, Littleton has a reputation as a very stable, well-managed community with, excellent, financial resources and outlook. You're gonna get some interest in this position. And, it's not uncommon, you might get 50 or 60 applicants for this position. And I think having a member of that committee that can kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, will be of great assistance in getting that number down to some more manageable number of people that you feel you need to talk to follow up with. I certainly know most of the managers in the field, I've been a member of the Managers Association, again, for 20-plus years. I've been on the executive committee of the MMA. I'm on the ethics committee of the Managers Association. And I discussed this potential opportunity with Mike Gillette, who's the chair of the ethics committee. So I'm very clear on what a manager can do, or should do to assist the search committee, and what's frankly not appropriate to do. So, I do take that seriously. And again, I think I've got the background that can be useful to the committee. I certainly, I think, understand the community after, my life's a resident. I think I have a sense of what the community is looking for. And I think, as Bill said, improving upon, Keith's tenure is not going to be easy. I think you're going to need an experienced hand as part of that process to kind of qualify candidates, pre-screen candidates, to get that, what I think will be a big number down to a smaller number, and an even smaller number for the board's consideration. So that's what brings me here tonight. Nothing fancy, nothing beyond that. I mean, I'm a resident of the town, and, it matters to me, who the town administrator is. And, I can help this board. That's why I put my name forward. And I leave it to you to, make the call. I didn't know there'd be 3 applicants. I know Kate quite well. She's in the neighboring town of Concord. I'm in Carlisle. And I've known Bill for many years. They're good people. And, I wouldn't say anything to the contrary, but I think, I've got, as I said, a couple of decades as a town administrator or an assistant town manager, and about 10 years before that in regional planning. So I've been around, longer than I used to think I was one of the young guys in the profession. Now I walk around these meetings. I know we look around. There's always a few less every month, right? It's like, where'd they go? Oh, they retired. Like, yeah, all of a sudden you're one of the old guys. So, Mr. Chairman, that's why I'm here tonight.
All right.
Happy to answer any of the board's questions.
All right.
Appreciate your
I try to surprise our members and pick somebody different every time to lead off, and they don't have to listen to me anyway. But how about Joe? You want to start off?
You mentioned that you thought we might get 50 to 60 applicants.
Oh, I don't know. I'm saying, I think you might be surprised at the level of interest.
I know from what Cindy and I went through in the police search, 50, 60, or 40 is an awful lot of resumes to look for. What would you look for to get that number down to the most qualified? Are there certain things? Would it just be education? Would it be experience? Or is there?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. The education. There'd be certain prerequisites that you're looking for, but I don't think, I don't think an advanced degree is the be all and end all. I mean, I would like to look at, the person's experience, what they've done. Probably the most important thing, I think, is the fit within the community. And I think you get a good sense of that when you talk with someone. Some people look great on paper, they don't interview so well. And some people interview very well, and maybe, they surprise you. In that sense, I think ultimately there are there are dozens of people that probably could do this job and do it well, but I think you're looking for, someone that's gonna stand out from the pack, someone you'll be, proud to work with. So I think, there are certain intangibles, I don't know if it was Bill or Kate that said it, but, sometimes you're going on field, because the qualifications are very similar, kind of, when you line them all up, in some instances, so sometimes you have to kind of go with your gut and what, how you feel about the individual. Some people, there are some folks that hop from job to job to job, and I think, this town, I think values, longevity, stability, and has in the past, and I think, that's important information to have as well.
Thanks. Yes. Okay. I won't be mean to Cindy, she's writing.
No,
I'm
I'm actually ready.
You're all right, Cindy.
I'm actually
You're all
ready.
right, you're all right.
I know. So I just want to touch on something you said, Tim. So what do you think the community is looking for in its next town administrator?
Well, I think the town, I think, in some respects, with Keith's been spoiled, that you got someone that's a professional that comes to work every day and gets things done, makes things happen, that maybe people don't realize how much work goes on behind the scenes. Certainly, as board members, how well, prepared you are for board meetings. I feel that way at town meeting. I think, it makes my job much easier when, the background work that the town administrator and his team have done. I think they're looking for, I think, someone that is going to be involved in the community to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just going to kind of be like in their office doing the job and not really engaging with the various groups in town. I think that maybe is, an area that could be expanded upon going down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Okay. Jason?
I couldn't agree with you more that I think the town is probably looking for a town administrator who's actively engaged and a face to the community. How would you want to see the screening committee evaluate that? Understanding that some candidates, even to someone with your experience, may be more foreign to you than others. So I would hope that some, maybe, that, they're very present. Other candidates are more uncertain. How would you try and get at that information and understand, would they really fulfill what that objective is?
I think initially it's difficult to kind of get at that because you're doing kind of a paper review of candidates and their qualifications. I think that would come out certainly later in an interview setting. I've often thought that you're familiar with assessment centers that the police and fire candidates go through. I've often thought that would be a great thing to bring to the municipal management profession, to see how someone might react to certain scenarios and things, the whole thinking on your feet kind of aspect, and to see if you would learn anything about the person by the way they might approach the job, because I don't think you get a very good sense of what they might be like on day one, just from the interview. You'll learn a lot, but I've often thought that maybe a more practical kind of review or analysis might be appropriate. I don't know how that'd be structured, but it's something from time to time I've thought of.
You would have thought of another
Sure,
quick
sure.
question. In terms of screening candidates, how much significance would you put on experience as a town administrator? Do you think that's a really critical piece of experience to have as being the number one? Or is that something that Littleton could look at other ways of gaining that experience?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think someone would have to be a town administrator or the equivalent. Particularly in a larger community, they might be in a more secondary role. you certainly have a lot of assistant town administrators out there that maybe for lack of opportunity, you've been at that level for a while, but could certainly do the job if given the opportunity. So no, I don't think it's nice to have experience, certainly, but I don't think someone would have to be a manager to become a great manager for a community. As I said, I think this is kind of seen as a desirable posting, if you will. I think it's, you might get some kind of lateral, interest in a lateral move from other managers in other communities where maybe they might be a little more envious of the stability and the financial resources of a town like Littleton. So it's not
And the good
necessarily.
looking board of selectmen.
People, well, exactly, exactly. But, yeah, so I mean, you might have people, looking to move up. But you might have people just kind of looking to make a change. It's not a learning position. I mean, this town's grown to the point where you're going to want somebody with some kind of experience and accomplishments in their career at whatever level, whatever position. This isn't a place, where you can kind of learn on the job.
Couldn't agree more.
Chuck?
Yep. Tim, likewise, thank you very much for coming forward and applying and being before us tonight. Kind of my standard question, you've already answered it by stating that you're very active in the DMA and in the Managers Association and Ethics Committee. Are there any other associations, I guess I'll throw it out there, are there any other associations that you think would help in this process that you belong to?
Well, in a town like Carlisle, which is significantly smaller than Littleton, you wear most, if not all, the hats. So I'm a member of the Procurement Association, MAPO, and the Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts, and the Mass Moderators Association. So a fair amount. I think you participate to the level you feel comfortable. I mean, you could be going to a meeting every week if you weren't careful. But I think it's important to stay abreast of changes in the field. And I think the board's probably seen this if you've been in the MMA annual meeting. Just the opportunity to network with your colleagues is probably more valuable than any of the sessions you can attend down there. I think I've always thought that or a trade show or anything like that. It's finding people that your opposite numbers in other communities and how are you guys handling this and that, and that's where you really learn the most about the job, I think. So I think you certainly want someone that was active in that sense, or had a good network of peers that they could call upon to bounce things off at the time.
You stated your experience would help you to separate the wheat from the chaff. What process do you kind of go through? You mentioned, again, to Joe's point, that the potential to have a lot of candidates put into this position. So in the police process, they had to go from 41 resumes down to a manageable number. How do you,
Right,
how do you,
right. Well, imagine
what do
the
you bring to
committee,
the table that helps to separate the wheat from the chaff?
well, the committee would set up, I could think, some sort of minimum required qualifications, characteristics that would immediately disqualify people that, on the face of it are not qualified, by experience or what have you for the position. And then I think you do kind of a deeper dive into things. There might be, people that are looking to make a move for, various reasons that might be in the news, or it might be known to a number of people why they're looking to make a move, and or why they were asked to make a move wherever they were. So the various ways to kind of get at the information. I think when you get down to doing interviews and checking references, backgrounds, and so forth, I think you really don't want to call their references, because those are their three best friends that you know, kind of put you down, and, yeah. You want to do kind of a deeper dive into, you know, their background, and talk to other employees they may have worked with over the years, and see what, you know, what you can find out about an individual. This is to be further along the process. I don't think that's necessary, you know, from the very beginning, but.
Yeah, I think Cindy kind of alluded to you mentioned the fit within the community.
Yeah, no, very important, yeah.
Address that, Mr. Chairman.
Good, okay. Tim, do you perceive any, not conflict, but any issues stemming from either your work schedule in Carlisle or also just your previous employment in this position here in Littleton? Do you perceive any downside to that as a?
Yeah, no, I don't think, I really can't think of anything. I mean, I certainly don't need another night meeting, like most of you probably don't either, but I imagine that's when the committee will meet. I can't think of anything that, you know, would be disqualifying in that sense, or an impediment.
All right. Well, thank you. Now we go.
Very good, thank you.
Unless there's any follow-up questions.
Okay.
Anything to add?
No, that's.
And you can't just appoint them for a time and walk on, right? Just to be clear.
We could probably find a way to, well. All right. Members, I'll take guidance from you. You've heard the candidates. Anybody want to chime in first on their thoughts? You can analyze all three of them. You can make a suggestion, however you want to do it. They're all still here in the room, too. So, yeah, that's good.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think that, you know, I'm very, very appreciative of all three of them coming forward, and each bring a great skill set. And to Chase's point, too bad we can't have all three of them sit in the committee, but maybe we can work towards changing the bylaws so that in the future we can get some folks at large that will afford us an opportunity to have a deeper and wider pool. But that being said, I'm only going in this order because this is the way they came before us, this is the way my notes are. So I think, to Cindy's point, Kate was very responsive, very positive in her responses, very thoughtful answers. The involvement of others, and I appreciated some of the responses that she gave. The fact that she doesn't live in Littleton, to the chairman's question. Initially, I would say that may be detrimental to her candidacy for this position, but I think her insight into the town of Littleton from being at a management position within the community, moving on and looking back, although she does not live in the town, I think she's got a very unique perspective. The other four candidates, if we were to select Ms. Hodges, are from Littleton, so that perspective won't be lost there. Moving on to Mr. Schmidt, you can't question that level of experience. And to my point earlier, served on the personnel board, and we've got some great folks that step up and volunteer for many of our boards, and Bill's an example here where his level of expertise in the field of HR is unquestionable, and could potentially provide a great level of guidance. One of my concerns there, however, is that you mentioned Anita being on the personnel board. Bill is also serving on the personnel board, and actually Gary Wilson is on the personnel board and the and he's the finance committee appointee for task. So there'd be three individuals from the personnel board were we to choose Mr. Schmidt. Moving on to Mr. Goddard. I mean, we very much a known commodity, lifelong resident. He's our town moderator. He definitely knows where the bodies are buried, and he's sat in the seat I didn't realize that you were, I guess if I sat down and did the math, I would have realized that Tim was one of only 3 TAs in the last 30 years, last 3 decades. That's pretty impressive. That's a good reflection on us, and one of Tim's final points about having people with longevity and not people jumping job to job. I thought that was certainly Tim. Well, we tend to retain our top management folks. I couldn't agree more than what Tim said about the fit in the community. I think that's extremely important, and I think that Tim certainly has a lot to add. He's got a lot of experience, and I think we do have a lot of experience on that board as well. So it's going to be one of us will be seated on that board. Anita Harding, Mike Fontanello, and Gary Wilson. Mike Fontanello was on the previous task the last time we had the Town Administrative Search Committee. So I think that's a pretty unique opportunity for us to have somebody with that look back. As far as personnel experience, Mr. Schmidt was talking about need to have somebody that has that level of expertise. Actually, all the candidates I think mentioned the fact that we need to have somebody with some personnel and HR experience, and I think Mr. Wilson very much meets that qualification for us, and that in that need on that commission. Well, I'll be honest with you, Frank. I think that Ms. Hodges would add a dynamic to the board that we're not getting from either of these candidates or necessarily from any of the other candidates that are already seated on task. So at this point, unless someone else gives me a compelling argument, I would be inclined to vote for Ms. Hodges.
Okay, the other members want to jump in? Joe, are you ready to make any comments?
Just like Chuck said, I think we're so lucky to have 3 candidates with such qualifications. I'm so impressed that Kate would come back as a non-resident to volunteer to be part of that. And obviously as an assistant manager in Concord with an incredible amount of different fields that she covers is certainly qualified. And I've worked with Kate in the past on Third Thursday. Had a lot of fun setting that up, and she gave me a lot of credit back then for helping getting it going. Mr. Schmidt, I'm having a great pleasure of working with right now in the Personnel Committee, and the guy is teaching me an awful lot about how you grade and rate people, and I'm still having a problem with one right now. He has to help solve me tomorrow to get that done. And it's fun to go to a different board when you have very little experience in that field and learn so much within 6 or 7 months. And he's been a big part of that. Now, with Tim, Tim's been in town, he's been a selectman in town, he's been a town administrator in town, he's been the town moderator in town, he's currently a town administrator. And definitely worked with him for over 10, 15, 20 years on different projects here and there. So all 3 are qualified, and I would probably be a little leaning toward Mr. Goddard right now.
Okay. Chase?
Do you mind if I ask a question first?
Sure.
What precedent is there for placing someone on a town board or commission who's not a resident of the
Did it last time.
It's allowable.
You had someone from Hudson who was the municipal management
in the
person.
last task.
With the last one, yeah.
And there's nothing,
No problem.
our statute.
No, they operate under the same bylaw.
I mean, my initial thoughts are that I would really rather not have to make a decision on this. I mean, the 3 candidates that we have in front of us, I'm fully confident all 3 would serve admirably and serve the town quite well. Certainly, I guess I probably put a lot of value then with that information based on Ms. Hodges' outside perspective. I think that's interesting, and to Ms. Hodges' point, the biggest mistakes in hiring decisions, and I completely agree with her assessment there, are made when everybody's moving in lockstep. I think that's a particularly compelling component of her application. That said, I also put a fair amount of stock in the fact that Mr. Goddard is in fact elected by the town residents to serve as our town administrator, moderator, as well as having been a town administrator here. So I think those are both compelling. The one thing I would note is the 3 members of the personnel board on the hiring committee, if we were to place Mr. Schmidt, that's a sticking point for me a little bit, not because there's any issue with any one of the 3 members, but at this point, we're separating very minor things, and I'm inclined to use that to disqualify Mr. Schmidt from consideration. But then between the remaining 2, I would say I give the edge to Ms. Hodges, but I could certainly be convinced to go either direction.
Okay, Cindy, do you have thoughts?
Certainly. So I liked Ms. Hodges' interview. I thought she did a really great job. I'd like to echo Chuck's comments, her unique perspective that she would bring to the committee, actually having worked in Littleton and is familiar with Littleton, but now being removed from Littleton. And looking at it from the outside in, I think that's very beneficial. She's certainly qualified to sit on the committee. I was very impressed with her hiring experience and the example she gave during her interview about different processes that she had gone through, different scenarios. I liked her answers to Chase's questions. I thought they were very insightful and helpful for us as a board. I'll echo Mr. Schmidt certainly is very qualified and experienced to sit on the committee, but I'm not sure that he'll add a dynamic to the committee that's not already there. I think we've already addressed that in some respects. And as far as Tim goes, as Mr. Goddard, certainly, he grew up in Littleton. He's very familiar with the committee. He's worn many hats in Littleton, as we all know. But I prefer, I think at this point, to have an outside perspective based on the current dynamic of the committee with who's already seated. So in that regard, I'm preferring Ms. Hodges for this position at this point.
Okay. Well, I can, you've all made eloquent statements. I can be pretty quick. I agree with the consensus that the personnel component is pretty adequately addressed there, and that's not a comment on Bill's qualifications. He's fairly unique in that respect, and would no doubt have served, distinguished himself on the committee, but I think we've got that covered. I'm frustrated that our bylaw has only 5 spots here, and, because I would hope if we were cutting from whole cloth, we would have had an opportunity to create a much larger committee similar to what we had with the police committee, and in that context, I would have been happy to accommodate as many citizens at large as possible, especially on a committee of only 5 people. I would not be voting for somebody who didn't live in town and send that message to people in town unless we didn't have that skill set available to us. And fortunately, not only do we have that skill set available to us in terms of experience in municipal management in Tim Goddard, but he's got vastly more experience in that realm. And if we don't fill that spot with somebody with that broad and long experience in municipal management at the highest level in a number of different communities, then we're going to have a committee that does not have that. So I think Mr. Goddard would be my first choice, and for the reason I just stated, probably probably integral to the success of that committee. But we've all made our comments now at this point. I don't know if folks want to make additional comments, or whether somebody wants to dive in with a motion or what.
The only additional comment that I'll make is, just coming to me as we're sitting here, with regard to Mr. Goddard, one of the potential candidates for the position, someone who's expressed an interest in the position, to the best of my knowledge, was involved in a selection process which Mr. Goddard oversaw. So I think there might be the potential opportunity for a conflict there. If not a conflict, I think there's just going to be a
We don't have any applicants yet.
we've got some folks that have expressed interest.
But I think it's equally likely that, I mean, listen, I think at this point we're between Ms. Hodges and Mr. Goddard, right? I think it's equally likely that applicants can be considered because of their relationship with Ms. Hodges as well. I mean, applicants that we're unaware of. It's really, frankly, though, and I hope Mr. Goddard is right, that our applicant pool is broad.
Right.
Overall, the applicant pool is not enormous, right? So I think given the relative size of that, we may see individual conflicts in certain places that
That's a good point.
it's possible members we need to be wise about that. And frankly, I think we need to seek guidance on what the appropriate degree of connection between an applicant and the person sitting on the screening committee is, and what would be the criteria under which someone would recuse themselves from consideration of that candidate. Your point's well taken.
No, I
though,
appreciate
that
that.
we could certainly see some conflicts in places.
That's a great point.
I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Kate Hodges as a member at large with the municipal management experience position.
I'll second that.
Okay, then the motion has been made and seconded to appoint Kate Hodges as the member at large with municipal management experience. Any further discussion? Okay, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? The ayes have it. Did you?
Well, if it's obviously gonna be 3 people voting, then I'll cast a vote in favor, if it's gonna be that way.
Okay. Well, I won't, for the reasons I stated. I think it's, town of 9,000 people, they should expect that we can come up with 5 people on the committee to represent the community, especially when we have qualified candidates in town. But, all right, 1 to go. We did vote, yeah, so that would be 4 to 1. The last we left it, we had a motion, this is to appoint the selectman, a member who by our bylaw would also serve as the chair of the task town administrator selection committee. And Cindy had made a motion for Chase, Chuck and I had all expressed interest, and Joe had made a motion for myself. Seconded by Chuck, then Chuck, on further consideration, withdrew that, and that's where we stood. So we don't have a seconded motion on the floor, but we can pick it up where we left it, and I don't know, I guess the ball...
That involves all 4 of us staring at Chuck, right?
Right, pretty much.
As stated before, I think in this circumstance, our chairman has 20-something years of experience and 20-something years of working with different boards, and I think with his experience, I would like a motion to nominate Mr. Glady as our representative.
If I could comment on that. I think that there's no questioning Paul's experience, but if Paul's the chairman of the committee, and he's also the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, which is the ultimate appointing authority, to coin a phrase that Mr. Wilson made, likened to the judge, jury, and execution. it should be a positive, not a negative connotation, but I just think that, going through the whole police process as the chairman, I very much wanted to be part of the police process, but there was a lot of people that wanted to be part of it, so I decided, as the Board of Selectmen, we were all going to be part of the final selection. So I stepped back, and you and Cindy sat on that board. So I'd be more inclined to make a motion to appoint Mr. Gerby.
Well, I'll tell you what, since you voiced an objection, I will, withdraw my interest in the position, so if you're interested in it. It's not an affront to Chase, but I do state my experience is gonna ultimately have to matter here somewhere, so while you don't have quite as much experience, I value that, somewhere here, so if you were interested in it, I would let you know that I won't take it.
Well, if I don't throw my hat in the ring, are you still withdrawing your?
I just withdrew my.
So, having withdrawn mine last week, I think that there's one candidate on the docket right now.
Okay, all right, just want to make you aware of that. So we have a motion, and do we have a second on the motion for?
Second.
No, you made the motion.
Oh, I thought Chuck
For
was making
Chase.
the motion.
What?
Oh, didn't you just make it again?
I can make it right now. Move the Board of Selectmen vote as follows relative to a 5-member town administration. This administrative selection committee as prescribed by the Town Code, Chapter 3, Section 2, to appoint Selectman Gerbig as chair of the task force.
Okay,
Second.
second. Motion's made and seconded then to appoint Selectman Chase Gerbic as chair of the Town Administrator Selection Committee. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Well, we're going to continue to have fun, but we're going into executive session. So the rest of
You guys have one.
What night is it? After it's sworn in by the town clerk.
I know the drill.
Thank you all.
I asked her, she mentioned in her letter, Kate, that she was asked to submit a letter. Anybody know idea what you asked her?
I've never met her before, it's surprising.
Talk to her boss.
Oh, we're gonna need a motion. I'll wait till Joe gets back.
Oh,
Do you want me to take the read?
oh,
We have to do a roll call vote anyways.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
all right, can I tell you, went back to Taga and we left? It wasn't good.
Really? Oh, I went back a couple of days later, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, no.
Megan was there last Monday night. And really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
She said it was great.
Yeah, we're ready to, we need to take a motion to,
Yes, all right, so, and that motion should, well, is it in there about,
Yeah.
not to convene?
Not to
Okay,
convene,
yeah, okay. All right, then the last agenda item is an executive session to consider the value of land litigation strategy for the Cooper Farm. So we do have a motion. Members are familiar with the issue, no doubt. Madam Clerk, you want to?
Certainly. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21, subsection A, clauses 3 and 6, to convene an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board, and to consider the value of real property, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position relative to Cooper Farm, and not to convene an open session thereafter.
Okay, motion's made. Second? And seconded. All right, this requires a roll call vote, so I will go around. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Gerbic?
Aye.
Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
And Mr. Glavy votes aye. So, good night, folks.